Can Baki Hanma win Total Drama World Tour? This is the long-awaited third season to the Can Baki Hanma win Total Drama series. If you have not seen the first two episodes, it is paramount you do so, otherwise you will not understand what's going on in the slightest. Let's get into the prologue. Cody finishes up his training with Oliva saying he's improved so much already. The question is, does he think his heart can handle another season? Cody, who hasn't changed size at all, says he will join the season to show Baki how much he's grown and try to find his own Maria. Owen bites through a vault door and asks Jack if they can stop and get some food, with Jack saying soon, just a few more reps. By the way, this came in the mail for you. He hands him the invite to World Tour and Owen cheers. Kyo Retsu tells ZJ that he's grown so much over such a short amount of time. At this rate, he'll be the youngest Kyo ever named. DJ would say he doesn't really care about that stuff, but Mama would slap him in the back of the head, saying to listen to what his stepfather has to say. DJ would say, sorry Mama. Retsu would tell DJ that the time has come to show what he's learned to the world, to show the entire planet our 4,000-year-old martial arts by joining Total Drama World Tour. Tyler beats another thug and asks Hanayama if he's ready yet for the next season. Hanayama places his arm out and Tyler grips onto it using the vice grip technique on Hanayama, and Hanayama smiles, telling Tyler he'll do just fine. Harold, with his eyes closed, defeats three martial artists by redirecting their attacks. Shibukawa claps his hands and tells Harold he couldn't have done better himself. If this is how fast he's improving, he thinks Harold will surpass him once he's his age. Harold thanks his sensei as Shibukawa says that the pleasure is his own, extending an invitation to World Tour to Harold. Duncan duels with Kosho, the two using the same styles to determine the winner, Kosho only winning due to his superior experience, but he does admit that Duncan's talent is immense. Who knows where he can be in a few years. Kosho tells Kureha that this one is already well above where he was at his age. He doesn't know if he likes Duncan copying his style. It feels like you're trying to replace me, Kureha. Kureha tells him that nobody can replace him. He just needs Duncan to be aware of the flaws that go into that style. Duncan asks what that means as Kureha extends the invitation and Duncan knows it's time for season 3. Gwen sits in the trees, having been in it for 14 hours straight, just waiting for a glimpse of Gaia, only for Gaia to appear behind her and knock her out of the tree. Gwen laments her failure, but Gaia says it's not something to be ashamed of. These are training mistakes, not real combat, and besides, you're facing the #1 soldier. You shouldn't be able to win. Gwen says yeah, but she's hoping for a little improvement. Gaia says if it's any consolation, Gwen's focus is intense. Nobody besides him would know she's there. Gwen asks if Baki would have known, and Gaia would say that Baki is a special case. Yujiro tells Alejandro he better be ready to go, he won't get a second chance. Alejandro says he knows he will make Baki pay for what he did to me. It flashes back to season 1 where Alejandro is in a bar watching the final 3. Come on Baki, show your superiority, you've been electric this entire season. As Baki quits to let DJ get to the finale, Alejandro slams his fists on the table as he suddenly hears a thunderous roar of anguish from Yujiro. Alejandro would go to him and say it's pathetic. Baki had all of it in his hand and he wasted it all for a friend. I wouldn't do that, would you? Yujiro smiles. Me? Quit for a friend? He suddenly cracks up into laughter. That's why Baki will never beat me. He's too nice, not cutthroat enough to be a true fighter. Alejandro nods his head, agreeing with every word. You seem pretty invested. Do you know him? Yujiro's creepy smile continues. Do I know him? He's my bastard son. Alejandro tells Yujiro that it's a shame. He would have asked for some training to show Baki his mistake, but Yujiro wouldn't want his own son to lose. Alejandro stands to leave, but Yujiro stops him as he stares at Alejandro with a serious look. You think you can beat Baki with a little training? You think you can humiliate him and his friends in battle? Alejandro says he'll make it to the end and show each person the flaws in their styles. Yujiro smiles once again and says that Alejandro has just willingly gone to hell, but if he survives he'll be a Hanma in everything but name. Eva loses to Doppo Orochi, her shorter limbs losing to Orochi's longer ones. Doppo internally would say that Eva is no slouch, her strength is amazing, and with just a little bit of honing, this hammer has become a blade that can cut through anything. Who knows how long he has until she can beat him, but she still has plenty to learn. He sighs and asks Eva what she'd rate her chances against Baki to be. Eva would say that she wouldn't be able to know until she sees how much stronger Baki has gotten. Orochi says that's a realistic answer. Does she think she'd want to try? Eva says she would, for the learning opportunity alone. Doppo then hands her the invitation and Eva asks if she's truly ready, with Doppo saying she just said she wanted to do it for the learning opportunity and Eva would accept. Now, what about our main hero, Baki? Surely he is working hard too. Baki is sleeping on a riverbank when Tokugawa tells Baki that every single person he wanted to join has accepted the terms and is going to join. There's even another one that was put in due to Yujiro's request. Baki is intrigued and stands up. So my dad is trying to train someone again? That didn't work out well in the maximum tournament for him. I doubt that it'll be much different here. Tokugawa tells Baki to not underestimate him. He seems to be on a level he hasn't seen in quite a while. Baki says that sounds great, he'll beat him in a punch instead of just flicking him away. Tokugawa knows that Baki is taking this seriously. Internally, he can sense just how focused and amped up Baki is. The nonchalant exterior is to keep the pressure valve contained. Episode 1 starts with Duncan telling Cody that he didn't go through with the training then. Cody says he did. His muscles just became super condensed and now his body is a lot more durable, but he didn't actually grow physically. Courtney tells him that's not how training works, and Cody just says to believe what they want. Sierra sees Cody and clings onto him, Cody just continuing to walk with her on him as if she isn't even there, with Duncan's jaw hanging open as he wonders if he was really not kidding. Heather greets Katie and Seedy, who have become friends once again during the off time between Action and World Tour. Seedy hugs Heather with Heather grimacing. Katie asks if she got any training and Heather says, oh no, she wouldn't look good buff. I mean, just look at Eva. Eva is arm wrestling with Tyler, the two being even as Tyler's grip strength gives him insane leverage, while Eva's strength is a real barrier to overcome. Lashana says they ain't so strong. See, she tries to lift Eva's dumbbell, but it's way too heavy for her. She manages to lift it with both hands, but she suddenly drops it, knocking Tyler out of focus as Eva wins, dislocating Tyler's shoulder. Tyler grips his shoulder in pain as Lindsay goes to comfort him, Correa coming in and telling her to get out of the way. It's just simply dislocated. Owen laughs and tells Gwen it sucks to be Tyler. Gwen says yeah, but when doesn't it suck to be Tyler? Harold tells DJ that he's happy to see him. Did he learn anything? DJ says nah, but Retsu is trying to make me a Kaio. I guess that means like Master Chef or something? Harold says that he can't believe Retsu is gonna try to make him a Kaio. That means he's like a master of Chinese Kempo. Izzy would say hi to Baki, but the sheer malice emanating from both Baki and Alejandro as the two stare at each other is enough to make anyone want to run away. Chef asks if the two can maybe chill out for half a second. They're making him feel a little uneasy. When they arrive, Chris tells them that this season will be taking place on a plane as they fly across the world. Others would be excited, but Baki wouldn't be, and Gwen would ask why he looks so sad. Baki just says that he's been around the world already, there aren't many things left to see. Alejandro tells him that's what he'd expect out of the son of the ogre. Cody would ask if that's why he went to America, and Baki says yes, saying how Oliva is one of the strongest fighters in the world, that's why he kidnapped the president. Gwen says, I'm sorry, what? Tyler says, oh yeah, it was all over the news. Baki kidnapped the president of the United States to get put into prison. Sierra says she'd kidnap anyone for Cody, getting Cody to wonder if this is the type of woman that Oliva was talking about that he should cherish, but he can't see it yet. Everyone boards the plane and Chris lets them all know from this point on, fighting is prohibited. Anyone caught fighting on the plane will be immediately eliminated. Baki asks what inspired the sudden change, and Chris says that Tokugawa let him know that U-runs are getting a little too strong and your punches may cause too much turbulence. As a result, this rule was put into place so we don't die while we're young. Heather says that she hopes he isn't including himself in the young category. Chris says anyway, the first challenge will take place in Egypt. When they land in Egypt, Harold says it's like being cooked in an oven, with Lashana saying it may help if he wasn't dressed like a baked potato. Harold says that aluminum foil stops the aliens from getting him. It's a problem in Egypt. Chris continues, telling them that the first challenge will involve them choosing how to traverse a pyramid, either go through it or over it. The majority of people choose to go through the tunnel, with Heather saying that nobody told her that there would be 3 paths to choose from. Izzy says she knows how to survive, they just need to find the airflow. Give me your hand, DJ. Lashana steps in and tells DJ not to, he may catch her craziness. Izzy says she wants to go on the scary mummy path. Tyler, Eva, and Baki all stay behind, intent on racing up the pyramid. Duncan would want to join, but Courtney would hold him back, upsetting him, but Gwen agrees to stay behind as well with him, making him feel a little better, with Courtney only agreeing because tying all 3 of them together is safer than just the 2 of them. Lindsay, Sadie, and Katie are also there just to look at Alejandro. Eva, Baki, and Tyler all run up the pyramid, with Tyler quickly falling behind Eva and Baki. Heather and Sierra almost get their heads taken off by a trap while Courtney argues with Gwen, Duncan sighing in annoyment. DJ pets a mummified dog and it cracks into many pieces as scarabs begin to fill the room. Owen calls out to Izzy not being able to find her. Baki and Eva make it down first, with Harold, Lashana, and DJ running out of the pyramid and making it next. Chris tells them that they're the first, to which Harold would say that first in Egyptian is Wahid, not getting a response and just feeling embarrassed. Baki would ask where Tyler is. He thought he was behind Eva. Eva says she doesn't know, to be honest. She wasn't aware that he fell behind. Sierra, Cody, and Heather all run past Izzy, who's dressed as a mummy. Alejandro, Katie, Seedy, and Lindsay make it next, with Lindsay going through first, and the others are told that this season will have 3 teams, so Alejandro, Katie, and Seedy will start team 2. In confessional, Baki would ask why Alejandro couldn't have just been on his team so he could have eliminated him early. Alejandro in confessional would say that this hardly bothers him. In fact, this makes things more enticing, no? I mean, now all he has to do is survive until merge, where Baki will be vulnerable again. Tyler falls down the pyramid and is the 4th member, Lindsay asking who he is again. Owen is the next one to come out of the pyramid, with Sierra, Cody, and Heather being next. Sierra would say that he's a lot heavier than she imagined, with Cody saying thanks, he works out. They are then informed that Heather and Cody will start team 3. Cody asks where Gwen and the others are, only for it to cut to those 3 up on the pyramid, where Chris tells them to get down here and get on team 3. Izzy runs out last, and Chris tells everyone to come up with a name. They are still called the exact same thing, with Baki noting that calling themselves Team Victory seems like a recipe for karmic retribution, but he's down to beat the odds. Chris then lets them know their rewards. Team Amazon win a camel. Team Chris is really hot, will get a goat, the goat knocking Tyler over, and Team Victory get a stick. Lashana says, really? The guys who come in last get a camel and we get a stick? Chris says all will be explained on the next episode of Total Drama World Tour. Episode 2 begins with Cody telling them that the next challenge is the Amazing Camel Race. Harold asks where the other camels are, to which Chris would say it's a camel race, not a camel's race. Lashana interjects by saying that they won last time, they deserve more than a stick. Chris says that each reward has a purpose. They all have to race to the Nile River. Heather takes charge, telling everyone to get on the camel, getting Courtney to ask who put her in charge. Last she checked, this was a team game. Heather says that's rich coming from her. Cody says hello to Gwen, and Gwen would say it's nice to see him again. She really appreciates all the things he did for her the last 2 seasons. Cody says nice, right? But now that you're single, how about it? Heather mocks him, saying that nobody will want to date him, making Cody shrink back down. Alejandro gives a motivational speech to his team that motivates everyone besides Sierra, who doesn't care about him. DJ snatches the stick away from Harold, telling him to stop waving it around before he hurts someone, throwing it into the air to dispose of it, only for it to hit a bird. Baki says that's unlucky, making DJ confess that he thinks he may be cursed from the mummy dog he broke. Baki says to keep him posted on that, he may know what to do. In confessional, Baki says he doesn't have a clue as to what to do, but DJ is highly superstitious, so how do you break one superstition? Another superstition. Team Chris all balance on the goat, Tyler suffering as he has to carry Owen. However, things get better the moment Alejandro jumps onto the goat as things get balanced. Chris tells them to avoid the scarabs, they're very killy this time of year, it's their mating season. Cody, Duncan, Izzy, and Gwen all play defense for Team Victory, while Alejandro, Tyler, Owen, and Sierra do it for Team Chris, and finally Baki, Harold, and Eva do it for Team Victory, with DJ not doing it since he doesn't want to hurt any more animals. They quickly realize there are too many scarabs, and despite Gwen dropping a bomb filled with bug spray, the scarabs persist, not dying, and everyone just runs away. Alejandro tries telling Courtney that Duncan doesn't deserve someone as witty and charming as her, Duncan yelling to say that to his face, and Alejandro says he doesn't mean to offend. Courtney saying, yeah, Duncan, he's just being nice, unlike you. Duncan in confessional says that he better watch out before I mess him up like I wish I would have done Justin. Alejandro changes the route as he sees the Nile, Team Amazon now being lost. Lashana realizes they have been running in circles and asks why Baki didn't tell him since he's a survivalist. Baki says that honestly he thought they had it, so he zoned out. Team Chris make it to the Nile first, with Chris telling them that to win immunity they have to weave a basket big enough to hold the entire team and the reward. They will then use it to roll themselves to the finish line. First team to arrive gets to fly to the next challenge in first class. Harold says from first place to last before snapping the stick, only to realize it's a divining rod. Lindsay says she doesn't want to get struck by lightning, and Lashana says that a divining rod helps find water. Baki says that this is what Chris must have meant when he said each reward had a use. DJ says the stick will lead them to the Nile. Team Amazon reach it next, and Sierra apologizes for how much progress they made. She's a master basket weaver. Izzy says they have Owen too, she's so lucky. Sierra says they should switch teams, and Heather says a basket case for a basket weaver? Fine. Sierra, you're with us. Izzy, go play with the boys. Alejandro says she can't do this, call Chris here, he won't allow this. this. Sierra appeals to Chris, saying that he would allow this because it's the best decision ever, being approved by the best host ever, and so Chris allows a team swap to remain. Team Victory finally arrive, and Courtney tells Izzy to talk to the camel, but Alejandro says that he traded her away. That power is theirs. Courtney says fine, everyone help her push it on. Team Chris are the first ones to go, and Alejandro has Izzy talk to the camel, getting it on as every team goes across the Nile. Baki and Eva fighting off the crocodiles before hopping in the water and pushing them all the way to first place. Chris says that he said they had to arrive in their boats, not out of it, Baki. You're already bending the rules. I love it, but lucky for everyone. As long as you brought the reward, nobody will go home. Nobody lost the reward, and so nobody will be going home tonight. Team Amazon made it first with Team Victory's disqualification in mind, and so they get to fly first class while Team Chris places second and Team Victory places third via DQ. On the plane, Alejandro takes his shirt off, catching the awe of all the women and Owen in the area. Tyler and Harold becoming pissed that he's trying to steal their girls. Alejandro in confessional says that he's just where he wants to be. He hopes they get mad enough to try something because he'll make sure they get shown just how futile their training was. Episode 3 starts with Cody and Duncan arm wrestling, with both of them actually being even, and Courtney asks if he's even trying, to which Duncan would say to shut up unless she's going to give him a hand. Cody says really, because this is just a warm-up for him. Duncan tells him to shut up, using his other hand and swinging it to try and use the cord cutter on Cody's arm, but Cody just grabs his hand with his other hand before beating Duncan, with Duncan in disbelief. Cody asks if that's enough proof for him, and Duncan says fine, he's still scrawny though. Sierra hugs Cody, telling him congratulations, as Heather in confessional asks why everyone has gotten training. Even Owen went to train, a bunch of freaks, all of them. Tyler tells DJ, Harold, and Owen that they're doing it tomorrow. Baki asks what they're doing tomorrow, and Tyler says, oh, they're just going to bed early. Baki says that's good, it's important to have plenty of energy, especially with all this jet lag. Baki in confessional says that they're gonna do something stupid, he can tell. Tyler is a terrible liar. Katie, Sadie, Lashana, and Lindsay are fawning over Alejandro, as Alejandro tells them that he can lift an entire truck with these two arms here. He flexes, knowing they aren't listening to a word he says and just admiring him, but that's what he wants. Owen asks if Al can carry him, and Alejandro says sure. He picks him up, and Owen says he's flying before Alejandro drops him onto the ground as if he was just a barbell, and in confessional says he really hates being called Al. On one hand, he doesn't like that he makes Tyler and Harold mad by doing this in front of their crushes, but on the other, he's Alejandro. Chris tells them that today's challenge will be taking place in Japan. Baki asks if it's a fighting challenge. Tokugawa surely went all out for his home country, and Chris says nope, today's challenge begins with a human game of pinball. Tyler and Harold would bond over how this reminds them both of the Japanese game shows. One contestant will be put into a pinball on each team where they will compete to have the highest score. Alejandro volunteers for his team after everyone else stays quiet. DJ says he won't do it, he's cursed. Baki gives DJ a pendant and tells him that he bought it from Egypt. It protects against curses. Wear this and the curse may as well just not exist. DJ thanks Baki profusely, and Baki tells DJ to just remain calm, he can handle it. Finally, on Team Amazon, Courtney, Heather, and Gwen argue, with Cody offering to do it but getting drowned out by the others. Duncan says that he's really thinking about quitting. Sierra says really? That's surprising considering he places highly every season. Duncan says yeah, but this season in particular sucks. No fighting on a team with a bunch of arguing girls, and worst of all, he lost to Cody. He just wants to go home and get back to training. Chris interrupts, and Cody and Sierra are chosen to go for Team Amazon. During the challenge, DJ uses his meditation techniques to calm himself down, and despite the panda trying to beat him up, he masterfully uses his defensive cooking style to block all of the panda's attacks, and it passes out from exhaustion. Alejandro is doing just fine with his panda. Cody asks Sierra if she's thinking what he's thinking, and Sierra says a honeymoon suite and 5 kids all named Cody Jr. Cody says no, target Alejandro. The two use their combined momentum to knock Alejandro around, Alejandro telling them to relax, he's not their enemy. Cody says yeah, right, he can sense someone of Oliva caliber when he sees one. Alejandro says they flatter him before slamming his ball into theirs, sending them hurling out of the pinball machine as Cody grabs onto Sierra so she isn't hurt from the fall, and Sierra in confessional says that it's about time Cody reciprocated her advances. Heather tells Cody to let go, and as Cody does so, he realizes he accidentally clutched too hard, and now her back is folded like a lawn chair. Gwen asks if she's okay, and Sierra says she's never been happier. The super doctor Correja says that this is definitely not one you see every day. I'll have her back in the third part of the challenge. Team Chris gets first, and Team Victory gets second for the first part of the challenge. The next challenge is introduced by showing a dubbed version of Total Drama Action in Japanese with everyone dubbed over besides Harold and Baki. Tyler says, "Aw man, I was in Japan too. Hanayama said the letter was nothing." Harold tells him it's alright, when you win this season you can rub it in Hanayama's face and choose to dub over your victory season. Tyler says he's right, he needs to learn other other languages to maximize his profits. Chris says that the next part of the challenge is to create, direct, and produce a commercial for the new hit snack, Total Drama Yum Yum Happy Go Time Candy Fishtails. Chef will judge each of the commercials. Since Team Chris is really hot, 1, they get first pick of the props. Alejandro wishes Team Victory luck, and Harold says he doesn't need luck from Alejandro. Alejandro says he's right, especially since he has superior leadership and visionary skills. Harold becomes happy and agrees, but Baki isn't amused. Team Amazon doesn't have lots of good options left, and Courtney asks Duncan if he has any ideas, and Duncan tells them to leave him out of this. He walks away, and Tyler whispers to him, telling him that they're gonna jump Alejandro soon. Does he want to join? Duncan says definitely. On Team Victory, Harold wants to take charge with his idea, but Baki reminds him this is a commercial, not a feature film. Lashana says that he's passionate about art, but Harold says that he understands, hanging his head in disappointment. Lashana asks what Baki meant, and Baki says to look past the surface level and she'll understand. DJ says so true. Lashana in confessional asks if she just had a stroke. What are these kung fu obsessed weirdos talking about? Lindsay asks why they don't do something with pad thai. Eva says that's Thai, not Japanese. Anyone else have any ideas? The room goes silent. Katie and Sadie create a small-scale city for Owen to stomp through as the monster. Katie and Sadie in confessional note that they created a small-scale theme park with working miniature rides for their 7th grade science fair. They still lost to a papier-mâché volcano. Alejandro tries a candied fishtail and immediately throws up, and in confessional says that he had to survive in the Arctic eating raw polar bear, and he'd rather do that again before eating another fishtail. Cody tries to mediate the arguing between Courtney, Heather, and Gwen, but it doesn't work. Sierra asks Duncan to help, and Duncan says that originally he wanted to quit, but he has a reason to stay, so he's down. Let's make cinema. The teams are told to show off their commercials. Team Victory is a lore-accurate commercial that you'd find in Japan. Baki says pretty great, right? Chef shrugs his shoulders and says it was entertaining. Team Chris is next, where they do the same commercial as in canon with a monster Owen being tamed via Yum Yum candied fishtails. Finally on Team Amazon, Courtney is about to tell Chris they didn't prepare one, but Duncan tells them to wait up, they do have one. The play incorporates all of Gwen, Courtney, and Heather's ideas. Chef awards the victory to Team Amazon, with second place going to Team Victory, so Team Chris will go to elimination. Chris welcomes them all to elimination. Owen, you were in charge of being the monster and you fell short. Owen asks why he's pinning the loss on only him. Alejandro says not to worry, he's sure he's fine. Alejandro, you won the first part but couldn't lead them to a victory in the second part. Not very good leadership. Alejandro in confessional asks when he became the leader of this group of losers. And finally, Izzy, your fawning over Owen as the monster may have killed any motivation your commercial may have gotten. Izzy asks if that's all, and Chris says yep, time to reveal the loser, which is surprisingly someone who I didn't talk about and was helpful. Sadie. Sadie asks why they do this, and Katie tells her that it'll be okay, she'll remain and win for her. Sadie tells her to make them pay as she jumps off the plane. Alejandro in confessional says that normally he'd get rid of Tyler, but Tyler still hasn't been humiliated yet. I know I'll stay no matter what. How long Tyler remains depends on how patient he is. Tyler in confessional says that Alejandro better be ready because we're gonna make Alejandro pay for flirting with my girl. Episode 4 begins with Tyler asking Alejandro if they can talk in the hangar, and Alejandro agrees. When he gets down there, he asks why Duncan, Harold, and DJ are here, to which Tyler says they're here to pay him back for flirting with their girls. Alejandro asks why DJ is here then, to which DJ would say friends stick together. Tyler rushes in first, throwing a heavy punch that Alejandro counters by throwing a dozen punches into Tyler before Tyler can even finish his first one. Tyler dropping as Alejandro reveals he targeted the pressure points. Don't try to get back up. Harold tells DJ to relax, this is just cooking, to which DJ would visualize himself in the kitchen once again and he'd attack Alejandro breaking him out of his focus by attacking his kitchen utensils, shattering them and taking DJ out with one chop to the neck. Harold rushes in next and Alejandro just relaxes all tension until Duncan suddenly rushes in and tries sucker punching Alejandro, making Alejandro tense up and allowing Harold to flip him and dislocate his arm. To their horror, Alejandro relocates his shoulder himself and asks if that's all they've got. Baki asks Owen where the others are, and Owen spills the beans on their plan, and Baki says that this is bad. Owen says yeah, Tyler will be eliminated when they find out. Baki says that isn't what he's referring to, they could be dead. Baki gets Eva and Cody on the way, with Sierra, Courtney, and Gwen coming along. Sierra because she wants to be near Cody, while Courtney and Gwen show up for Duncan. When they all arrive, they see all four of the fighters defeated, with Alejandro getting ready to finish off Duncan before turning to see Baki, his eye having been cord cut by Duncan. Eva asks what happened here, as Gwen and Courtney rush to Duncan, and the other three check on all the others. Alejandro says a bit of turbulence, they slipped and hurt themselves, right everyone? Tyler says yes, that's what happened. Duncan says yep, we just fell, and Courtney asks what he means. It's obvious Alejandro attacked him. Duncan says to shut up, if they figure out that they lost a 1v4, they'll be the laughingstock of the century. Courtney says that's insane, but Gwen says she gets it. When she lost to Tyler last season, nobody wanted to train her besides Gaia, who saw the potential in her. Baki says he'll get Correja and runs out, but notices Eva's angry look at Alejandro. She wants to test herself on him as well. He wonders if Eva has what it takes, however, considering how he beat all four of them with relative ease. Chris tells them all that since the hangar turned out to be more dangerous than once thought, it'll be sealed off so nobody can go in and out of it, but just to be sure, if you break the lock on it, you're out. Can't have another injury like that happen again. Apparently the injuries were very much like they had been attacked with techniques, but what do I know? I just have the super doctor on my team, and nobody confessed to it, so my hands are tied. Heather says she can tell them what happened, and Chris says that she wasn't there, so no, she can't. They already got all the testimonies from those who were involved. No need for any conspiracies, Heather. Alejandro says, yeah, Heather, how about you stop spreading baseless theories before your team gets offended and votes you off again? Chris continues by asking if they liked the last challenge, getting a resounding no, to which Chris would say great, because this challenge is nothing like the last one. They land in the Yukon where everyone besides Baki is freezing. LaShawn asks how the hell is he not cold, and Baki says meditation. Right now he's in the desert. He's actually at risk of heat stroke. LaShawn says that it takes a lot to out crazy Izzy, but he thinks he just did it. Katie asks Tyler if they can talk, and Tyler asks what she wants. Katie says she needs training to get revenge. Tyler says sorry, Hanayama told me to treat revenge just as precious as I would love. Katie says that she loved Seedy and now she's gone. Now she wants revenge. If he can't give it to her, she'll get it from somewhere else. Tyler says that maybe she should because he won't help her with this goal. Katie leaves dejected but asks Izzy if she'll help, and Izzy says oh yeah, sounds like fun. The first part of the challenge will have them jumping from ice block to ice block before having one member of their team dragging the sled that carries the rest of their team. Tyler volunteers to do it on Team Chris, Eva volunteers on Team Victory, and they nominate Heather to pull it for Team Amazon regardless of her consent. During the start, Tyler slips on an ice block and Lindsay says hi to him, calling him Noah. Tyler in confessional says he doesn't get it. He's the least talked about contestant on all the fan blogs. Worst of all, Lindsay just called me Noah. Owen is entranced by Izzy's natural ability to jump across the ice, and Owen tries to do it as well, falling through the ice into the water. Lashana falls on top of Alejandro, and Alejandro flirts with Lashana by telling her that just because they're on different teams doesn't mean they can't talk to each other, making Alejandro ask what Lashana is doing, and Lashana says to quiet down. She's talking to Alejandro. Lashana slips but is saved by Alejandro, and the two fall on top of each other and accidentally kiss each other, with Lashana saying sorry, but Alejandro says it didn't feel like an accident to him, upsetting Harold immensely as he quickly hops to the other side, telling Lashana to hurry up. Lashana says she needs to go back to her team, and Alejandro says that he'll see her around. Baki goes to Lashana to lead her to the end, so Alejandro doesn't try anything else. Eva makes it first, so she has to pull for Team Victory. Tyler makes it first on Team Chris, so he has to pull, and Courtney and Heather make it at the same time for Team Amazon, with Chris saying that in the event of a tie, it'll go alphabetically, so Courtney will pull. Heather cheers and mocks Courtney for her attempt at forcing her to pull. Heather also gets a whip, which she insists on using to make Courtney go faster. Courtney in confessional says that when the time comes, Heather will pay. Tyler grabs Owen but realizes it's almost impossible to pull with him on it. He gets a push from Alejandro to build momentum, and everything seems to be going well until they reach an icy bridge and it collapses, Tyler being the only thing between them and death. He clings onto the mountain with his insane grip strength and saves the team from falling to their death. Alejandro saying he does have a real use after all. Tyler telling him just to hurry up before he cuts the rope. They race down the hill to get to the finish line as Team Victory's in the lead. Katie tells Owen to lean forward, and he does so, the weight pulling them forward as Tyler gets dragged behind them. Team Chris manages to make it first, with Team Victory making it second and Team Amazon making it last. Heather complains about them losing despite all of her hard work, getting glares from the others. Chris tells him he'll see them at elimination tonight. Before the elimination, Sierra takes Cody and Heather and are trying to figure out who to vote for, Heather saying she doesn't care as long as it isn't her. Sierra in confessional says that she's not stupid, she knows Heather is evil, but since she's aware of it, she could dispose of Heather whenever she wants. Gwen and Courtney both argue about whether to get rid of Heather or Sierra, and Duncan says he's had it. He goes to Heather, Cody, and Sierra and tells them to vote him off. He's out, he's tired of this. This shocks everyone on the team as Gwen and Courtney both try to convince him to stay, but Duncan says no, he's going. Courtney asks why, he's not at risk, and Duncan says he doesn't care, he only showed up to fight, and if this season is only giving him this, he'd rather just train with Kosho back home. Everyone is left stunned and Duncan walks away. Chris welcomes them to the elimination ceremony. Before we begin, let me state why each of you may be going home. Duncan stands up and says, nope, I'm done. I'm not waiting a second. If you didn't vote me off, whatever, because I quit. Chris says, it was 4 votes against you with even you voting for yourself, which most likely saved Heather. He grabs his parachute as Courtney asks if they can have a kiss goodbye, and Duncan says she'll have plenty of time for that when she gets to the finale. He jumps out and in confessional Courtney says, maybe she should have been focusing less on the game. Now Duncan is gone and all I did around him was argue with Gwen. Harold asks where Lashana is going and Lashana says that Alejandro invited her to first class. Harold says she can't go, but Lashana says she will. They're just friends after all. She goes off, but Harold yells that that's what they all say before they get cheated on, with Lashana yelling that they were never a thing to begin with. Baki supports Harold by telling him not to worry, they will expose Alejandro soon enough. DJ says, yeah right, dude's as slick as velvet and slippery as butter. Heather in confessional says that Alejandro thinks he's got it all figured out, but she just needs to figure out how to prove Alejandro was fighting in the hangar, and not only will he leave, but so will Tyler, DJ, and Harold. Stay safe, Alejandro, because as soon as I think of something, you're gone. The next episode begins with Katie punching Izzy and Izzy reels back, to which Katie would ask if she's okay and Izzy would say, yeah, you're actually really weak. I mean, I sold that punch as hard as I could. Katie says that she doesn't need Izzy to act like it hurts, she needs to be trained. Izzy says, oh, I thought you wanted acting lessons. Chris says, hey, are you two fighting? And Izzy says, no, just training. Chris says, oh, that's okay, but I have my eye on you. Tyler eats breakfast while Alejandro tells him that eating a meal is really nice compared to chef slop. Tyler says Alejandro deserves to eat pig intestines. Alejandro asks if he did something wrong, and Tyler says, yeah, you took my girl. Alejandro acts confused, but then quickly says, oh, Lindsay? I didn't realize she was yours. Tyler says, yeah, and even though they're going through a rough patch right now, they're still together. Alejandro says, oh, my amigo, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. If I knew, I would have never talked to her in that way. Tyler sighs and says it's fine, he didn't know. Wanna eat breakfast together? Alejandro says, of course, you have a strong punch, and Tyler thanks him, saying he has a strong punch as well. Alejandro in confessional says he isn't a fool, he knows everything he does and he stands behind it, but he's willing to lie to get ahead. He needs all the allies he can get right now. Owen wakes up and asks where Izzy is, and Tyler says he doesn't know, he hasn't seen her. Alejandro says, yeah, now that you mention it, where's Katie? Courtney is crying and Heather asks if she's crying over Duncan. Courtney says, no, I'd never cry for Duncan. Heather says it's okay, she understands. Courtney asks how she could possibly understand, she's heartless. Heather says that she wasn't always this way, she used to love a boy who she spent a while dating, only to see him kissing another girl on Valentine's Day. Courtney says that's awful, and in confessional, Heather says she's lying, she hasn't felt love for anyone. Sierra says that's so sad, and Heather asks what she's doing here. Sierra says that Cody is using the bathroom. Cody in confessional says that he likes Sierra, but he only has so many stories to tell, but at least she gives him attention, unlike Gwen. Gwen knocks on the door saying she needs to use it, and Cody says sorry, he'll be out in a second. Cody leaves and Gwen in confessional says she didn't think Duncan leaving would hurt so much. Duncan was like the anchor to our team. Now that he's gone, I feel a hole has been left. Sierra asks Cody if he had fun, and Cody asks in the bathroom, I guess, but Sierra hugs him and says that he looks 3 minutes older. She takes a photo of him and puts it in her scrapbook. Lindsay asks why she has to be training, and Lashana says yeah, she doesn't want to fight. Baki says that's a good question. Anyone know why he's making them all do this? Harold says because it'll help the team, and Baki says close. Eva says because it'll help hone our bodies and minds, making us an asset as a result. Baki says bingo, nice work Eva. Harold in confessional says that Eva is suddenly the smart one. He doesn't like this one bit. Chris comes over the intercom and tells them today's challenge will begin shortly. He gathers them all and tells them their next challenge will take place in New York City. Lindsay is ecstatic due to all the stores she will visit. Chris says that the first challenge will be a carriage race to Central Park. Owen claps at the prospect of riding in a horse carriage, only for Chris to clarify that it's a baby carriage. Lashana asks where the carriages are, and Chris points to the top of the Statue of Liberty where the carriages are. Lashana says thank God her arms are sore from training Baki. Baki asks if she needs to be carried, and Harold says he'll do it. Lashana says no, she's just complaining. Chris continues by saying that after teams gather their carriages, they then have to go onto boats that'll take them to their next destination, Central Park. Chris blows the whistle for them to begin the challenge. All of the usual culprits climb up immediately as Courtney tells them to wait, they need to plan this out more. Gwen asks if they're gonna use another belay system since it worked so well last time, and Courtney Courtney catches onto the sarcasm and surrenders. Heather tells Sierra to decide how the team will climb, and Sierra puts Cody behind her so that if she falls, Cody can catch her. Team Victory managed to climb up first, with Team Chris in second, and in third is Team Amazon. After they get through the baby carriage part of the challenge, Chris tells them that the next part is bobbing for apples. They can only use their mouths to get it out. Baki says to let him do this, it'll be fun. Sierra volunteers for Team Amazon and Tyler volunteers for Team Chris. Baki places his mouth over the apple before blowing it out of the water as it falls into their carriage. Tyler begins to hurry up, bashing his head against the apple faster to let them get ready to go quicker. Sierra brings the apple over and all three teams are neck and neck, with Team Victory placing first, Team Chris second, and Team Amazon third. Courtney apologizes that she feels like she messed up today. Vote her off so she can make amends and see Duncan so she can apologize to him directly. Chris says that's really touching, but unfortunately for you, this is a non-elimination episode and a reward challenge for the winners. At elimination, Team Victory are given all three apples, which Baki opens one to find candy. Baki says this is a nice reward. Processed sugars can act as fuel in a pinch. Lindsay goes next and bursts open the apple to find apples inside. Lindsay saying that she loves apples. It starts with an A like Lindsay. Finally, Eva opens the last one to find a meat grinder. Lashana says it's a dud, toss it, but Harold says to remember the stick. This could be another one of those situations where we don't see the value yet. Chris says he's too wise for his own good. Who can really say? Regardless, you all can enjoy your time in first class. Baki in confessional says that this is tough. He at first thought about just snitching on Alejandro, but if he does that, then Tyler, Harold, and DJ also leave. But he can't just fight Alejandro because then Alejandro and him will leave. Man, I shouldn't have made that promise, but I'll think of something even if it takes the finale to do so. Alejandro goes to Katie and asks how she's doing. He hasn't seen her around as much. Katie would awkwardly say that she's been training, and Alejandro says that she could have just asked him. Katie says it's okay, she has a friend teaching her. Alejandro says alright, just remember that I'm here for you, as a friend. Katie says she knows and leaves, but in confessional, Alejandro says that Katie is lying through her teeth. I'd take it more seriously if it weren't for it being Katie that's going for me. I doubt anything bad will come of keeping her around, similar to keeping Seedy around. Episode 7 begins with Baki, Eva, Harold, DJ, Lashana, and Lindsay all trying to hold handstands for as long as they can. Baki does it with one finger while Eva does it with two. Harold has to put one hand down and DJ just holds a normal handstand along with Lindsay. Lashana keeps trying and failing before saying that this is stupid, isn't this supposed to be first class? Now she needs to get a shower before the challenge. Baki thanks her for showing up and Eva asks why he keeps pushing her to join when she doesn't want to, and Baki says that he can sense a fire in her that just needs to be awoken. If she wasn't passionate about it, she wouldn't leave like that. Anger in of itself shows investment. You can't be mad at something you never cared about to begin with. Harold says that Lashana must be hurting really bad. She was always the toughest one back home. DJ says there's always a bigger fish, and Lindsay asks if she will really become a fish if she does this training. She bets she looks great with gills. Tyler says that losing stinks, and Alejandro says that they'll just win the challenge today. Courtney says yeah right, Team Victory has been unstoppable. Sierra says it doesn't matter where she goes as long as she's with Cody. Gwen says she misses Duncan, and Heather asks why. All he did was mope around and try to find someone to fight. He wasn't close to being an asset. Courtney in confessional says that it may just be her, but she doesn't like Gwen saying that she misses Duncan one bit. Alejandro says speaking of assets, where's the rest of our team? Izzy tells Katie to throw another punch into Owen's gut, and Katie does so, causing Owen to laugh. Izzy tells Owen thanks for eating the lock on the hanger, and Owen says that Chris just said we couldn't break the lock. I ate the entire mechanism in one piece. Katie grows angrier, telling them to shut up, and she throws a final punch that causes Owen to actually feel it, and he stinks up the entire hanger as Chef asks why there's no lock on this hanger. He lifts the hatch and says, phew, something must have died in there, before bolting the hatch door down. Katie asks what they'll do now, and Owen says not to look at him. Izzy says that this is okay, all they need to do is wait to land and then they can break a hole in the plane to escape. Owen would say that only his jaw got training, and there's not really a good point to bite on this plane. Katie is about to yell for help, but Izzy asks if she's stupid. If they find them, they're all out. Katie says no, only the one who broke the lock will leave. Izzy says she can't believe her willing to abandon Owen. Kinda cutthroat, I like it. Owen tells Izzy not to abandon her, and Izzy tells the big guy not to worry, she'd never throw him under the bus despite how good that would be for the ratings. Chris comes over the intercom to let them know the next challenge will begin shortly. They land in the middle of an avalanche, and after everyone gets out, Lindsay says hi to Tyler, calling him Daryl. Tyler reminds her that they were together for 2 seasons, and Lindsay says that he must be confused. Tyler went to Japan to train and I don't know when he'll come back. Baki asks her why she doesn't think it can be Tyler, and Lindsay says that Tyler had his headband a bit more to the left. Tyler says, what, like this? Adjusting it, to which Lindsay would hug Tyler saying that he's back. Tyler would be so enthused that Lindsay remembers him that he lets out a triumphant roar, causing another avalanche as all the teams get swept down the mountain. Tyler tries to apologize and Alejandro says, no worry, I'm happy for you. In confessional, he says that he hates Tyler almost as much as Owen. Speaking of which, where is Owen? Tyler says he doesn't know, and Chris says that he guesses that Team Chris will be a little short-handed tonight. Lindsay says that she's so happy Tyler is back, and Baki says he's happy too, he's just glad Chris brought him back. Lashana asks why he's indulging her, and Baki says it's just easier to do so. When they all reach the top of the mountain, Chris explains that each team's challenge is to grind their respective piles of meat into a giant sausage and then ride the sausage down to the bottom of the icy hill. Harold says that he knew this electric meat grinder would come in handy. Heather says she would have thrown it away, honestly. Cody comes over and asks Baki if there was any candy in one of them, and Baki says that it's funny he asked. Did he watch the footage? Heather has a realization and in confessional says, footage? There's cameras everywhere here. Surely there's one in the hangar as well. I just have to find it. Cody says so there was. Can he have some? Baki says to knock himself out, handing a handful out of his pocket to Cody, to which Cody would be totally psyched. Courtney says she's so tired of Team Victory getting everything good, and Gwen would say to shut up and just pack the meat. Courtney says she was thinking about something. Why is she sad about Duncan leaving as well? Gwen says that they're friends. Is it wrong to be sad about a friend leaving? Courtney says sure, but maybe she wanted them to be more than friends. Gwen says to think about what she's saying carefully because she likes Courtney. She doesn't want their friendship to end because of this. Courtney says it won't end if the accusation isn't true. Gwen says to think what she wants then, and Courtney says fine, you're my target. Gwen says ooh, I'm so scared. Heather in confessional says she loves when she isn't the target. Sierra says she finished, and Courtney says really? Sierra says yep, she made meat, Cody. Cody says that he's right here though, realizing that maybe Sierra is a bit insane. Courtney becomes angry and begins packing the meat in faster. Alejandro says that they could really use 3 more bodies here, and Tyler asks why so Owen can eat the meat. Alejandro actually laughs and says yeah, that's for sure, but he has half a mind to grind them up when he finds them. Tyler says not to worry, they just removed the dead weight on the team. Alejandro says in confessional that he's starting to like the cut of Tyler's jib. He needs to remove him soon before he forgets his mission. In the hangar, Katie asks if they're gonna die here, and Izzy says no way. Worst case scenario, they just stink for a while. Katie screams in agony, saying that's worse than death. Owen tells them both that he's sorry, it's all his fault that one of them is gonna leave. Once they figure out that it's broken, they're gonna be eliminated. Katie says to calm down, she'll take the fall. Let's face it, she doesn't have what it takes to actually avenge Seedy. Owen asks what she means. She finally landed a punch that hurt. Izzy says yeah, I finally saw potential. You can't be the one who leaves. Katie says fine, they'll decide when they get let out. Team Victory makes the largest sausage and go first, while Team Chris goes second, and Heather says that they should make it into a snowboard. This works for a second, but soon it falls apart and everyone falls down. Alejandro bumps their sausage into Team Victory's, veering them off course enough to lose to Team Chris, while Team Victory are second and Team Amazon are last. Team Chris get helmets, Team Victory gets fur hats, and Team Amazon get Tyrolean hats, and one member must wear lederhosen. Cody tells Sierra to do it, she'll look hot in it, making Sierra beg for it. Chris says that since she wants it, he doesn't want to give it to her, it'll go to Cody instead. The final part of the challenge is to do a German dance on these dance pads. If you press a wrong note or I get bored, you'll be electrocuted. It'll be 2 from each team. Lashana asks Harold if he's thinking what she's thinking, and Harold says totally, let's get our boogie on. Tyler says this sucks, he has 2 left feet when it comes to dancing. Sierra and Cody go for Team Amazon. Chef teaches everyone the moves and Sierra quickly masters it due to her grandparents being German. Alejandro tells Lashana her dancing is fabulous. Tyler asks why he's trying to flirt with Lashana, and Alejandro says he's working an angle, my friend. Harold says to watch out for Alejandro, and Lashana says to stop being so jealous. Chris tells him it's time for the challenge. Last person standing wins the challenge for their team. The platforms raise and the matchups are Alejandro versus Lashana, Tyler versus Cody, and Harold versus Sierra. Tyler tries to punch Cody off, but it feels like punching a rock, causing him to hold his hand in pain and stop dancing, shocking him as Cody says right back at ya, slapping him off the platform. Lashana says she doesn't want to hit someone so handsome, and Alejandro says to allow him then, jumping off the platform to eliminate himself as Harold falls off at the same time. Baki asks how he managed that. Sierra in confessional says that before she showed up, she made sure to learn all she could about their fighting styles so she could counter them if they tried messing with Cody. Harold in confessional says it was a fluke. There's no way he's losing his touch. He won action after all. Chris says that since Alejandro and Tyler are eliminated, Team Chris will be going to elimination elimination, but they still need to determine who's going to first class. Tyler apologizes, Cody's body feels like a boulder, and Alejandro tells him it's okay, he took his opponent lightly as well. Lashana in confessional says it was so cool what Alejandro did for me. Round 2 begins with Lashana, Sierra, and Cody being in a 3-way deadlock. Alejandro yells that she can do this, and Lashana says to come get her then. Sierra tries to kick her, but Lashana just ducks, causing Sierra to miss and go flying into the snow as Cody yells out to Sierra. Lashana throws a kick into Cody, but Cody remains standing, and it cuts to Alejandro's gaze drifting lower as Lashana falls off the platform. Chris says that Team Amazon wins. Heather in confessional says that there's no way Alejandro lost to Lashana. There's something really fishy going on between them, but first the hangar. She needs to figure out where the film room is first. Chris tells Team Chris he'll see them at elimination. Alejandro walks to the bolted down hatch to the hangar and he rips it open with one pull, telling them to get out of there. Owen says sorry Al, and Alejandro punches Owen's gut, causing him to spit out the lock he ate, and Alejandro fixes the hatch back up as he tells them that if he doesn't want this to go public, they need to vote his way. They all inevitably agree. Chris welcomes them to elimination. It's good to see everyone here. Where were they at? Katie says she overslept, and Owen says he was eating and lost track of time. Izzy says she was exploring the other rooms of the plane, and Chris says believable, he'll drop it then. Tyler says if it was up to him, all 3 of them would leave. Chris says unluckily for him, it's not up to him, and they already said what they wanted to say. It's 4 votes against you, Tyler. Tyler says what? That's not fair. I actually competed and they vote me off. Katie says she didn't have a choice, and Tyler says that this is because he didn't agree to help her train to get revenge on Alejandro, isn't it? Well, you'll never beat him anyway. Alejandro is a world above you. Alejandro in confessional says he really can't believe Tyler hasn't realized that he also voted for him. Tyler tells Alejandro to eliminate these team players for him before jumping off the plane. Alejandro walks to the security room and enters it, grabbing the hangar footage of Izzy, Katie, and Owen in it, and keeping the disc with him before deleting that footage. As he stands up to leave, he thinks about something and sits back down. Heather walks to the film room and sees Alejandro leave, and she asks what he's got there. Alejandro says nothing important, leaving, and Heather walks in, expecting the footage to be deleted, but it's still there as she sees Duncan, DJ, Tyler, and Harold all preparing to jump Alejandro in the hangar. She doesn't check the rest of the footage, and she grabs the entire day's footage on a disc and leaves. In confessional, she says that it's over for Alejandro. In episode 8, Alejandro asks Katie, Izzy, and Owen what they could possibly have been doing in the hangar. Katie tries to lie, but Alejandro pulls out the disc and tells her to think carefully about what she says next. They realize they're caught, and Katie says she was training with Izzy and Owen. Alejandro says she could have asked him, and Katie says no, I hate you. You got rid of Seedy and now I want you gone. Alejandro says that's great, but how about you put all that bravado away while I hold proof you broke the rules. Katie says that she hates him so much. Lashana says that this is the first training method she can get behind. Meditation is just like relaxing. She looks over only to see Baki vigorously shadowboxing, and she groans, saying that boy needs to rest. Lindsay asks if Tyler is really gone, and DJ says it was definitely because of Alejandro. They need to find a way to eliminate him. Eva asks if they thought about winning challenges, and Harold says yeah, that's pretty much the only way we can ensure that he'll eventually leave. Lashana tells them to stop talking about Alejandro like he's some villain. Alejandro is a good man. Eva says good at playing you maybe. Lashana asks if she wants to say that to her face, and Eva says gladly, snapping Baki out of his trance, and he tells them to stop fighting. This won't do anyone any good. Lashana says whatever, just don't talk about Alejandro like that again. Gwen says it's nice to be in first, and Courtney says she'd rather they be in last personally so they could eliminate her. Gwen tells her to give her a break already. Heather revels in this, and Sierra says it must be nice knowing that she's safe without question for once in these seasons. Heather says it sure is. Cody eats candy, saying that this is even better after a loss. Chris comes over the intercom and tells them that the next challenge is about to begin. Chris tells them that today's challenge is going to be in the Amazon rainforest. Part 1 will have them hiking through to reach Machu Picchu, where they then must find the golden treasure to win immunity. All the teams go off, and Team Victory chooses the left path. Alejandro chooses to follow Team Victory since they seem to always win. Gwen says they should choose the right path, but Sierra says they should go left since if they're wrong, then everyone is. Cody agrees with Sierra, and Heather says she doesn't really care where they go, leading to Courtney to agree with Gwen reluctantly, and so Heather says fine, but if they lose they can vote off either Gwen or Courtney. Gwen tries to reject it and backtrack, but they just continue to walk down the path. Team Victory reaches the zip line first and get to use a T bar to get across. Team Chris make it next, and Alejandro says, "Dang it, how are we supposed to get across now?" Izzy grabs a large stick and tells Owen to hold it as everyone grabs onto him and they go sliding down the zip line dipping into the water due to the weight being too much for it, and they have to swim to shore with piranha bite marks. Owen telling Alejandro that was a great plan, and Alejandro tells him to be quiet, at least he's thinking of something. While walking through the forest, Team Amazon are suddenly held at spear point by the Zingzings, a tribe in the rainforest. To make matters worse, their walkie-talkie doesn't even work. The team are tied to a tree, and Heather says, "Wait, Gwen, didn't you train with a soldier? Do you know how to untie yourself?" Gwen says she didn't reach that part of the training yet, and Heather says that this is just great. Cody tells him that he has a flashlight in his pocket, taking it out before getting the batteries into the walkie-talkie. Team Victory are given bananas as a reward for being first on the first part of the challenge, while Alejandro asks what he has to do to eliminate Team Victory for good. Gwen chimes in, telling them about being kidnapped, but it gets interrupted with Lindsay telling them that they won the challenge, and Courtney rolls her eyes, saying of course they did. Alejandro asks if they need him to help them, and Heather would say that she'd rather be killed by the Zingzings. Chris tells them that he'll send Chef to help. For now, stay alive. Courtney says that Chris is the worst. As Team Chris sleeps, they hear some noises and shine their flashlight to see giant caterpillar-like creatures, and they all start running, but Owen falls behind, Alejandro telling them that they just need to keep running, they can't take a head count. Baki grabs an animal sneaking around that grabbed a banana, and as he opens his eyes he sees a monkey and is a bit disappointed. He hands it a banana and drops it back down before going back to sleep. In the morning, Alejandro sees Owen hanging in a cocoon, and Alejandro asks what happened. Owen says that he watched him get taken away, but Alejandro would say that Izzy was the one who told us to keep running. He came back for him. He's Owen's only true friend. Owen in confessional says that maybe it's just because that was the scariest day of his life, but he thinks Alejandro was telling the truth. Alejandro then releases him and they head to Machu Picchu. The two run to the others where Izzy and Katie are trying to pull a statue from the ground, with Chris telling them that's the wrong treasure. Lindsay running over and handing a golden statue to Chris, and Chris says that Team Victory are the winners. Owen removes the pillar from the earth and the ruins begin to shake as both teams quickly evacuate. Lashana tells Alejandro to help, but Alejandro keeps running. Harold going back to save her as Lashana in confessional says she feels like such a fool. Harold was there for her when she needed him while Alejandro wasn't. Maybe Harold is better for her. Chef finds Team Amazon and slices the ropes, telling them these two are actually just actors pretending to be Zingzings. He then reminds them that they will need to vote someone off tonight. He grumbles, asking why it couldn't have been Team Victory that met them so that he wouldn't have had to trudge all the way out here. Heather says that she's glad they went right Gwen? Gwen hangs her head in embarrassment. Chris welcomes them to the elimination ceremony. Today we will be revealing all the votes. Cody and Gwen, you both voted for Courtney. Courtney says she expected nothing less from a boyfriend stealer. Gwen says that she didn't steal anything even if she wanted to. Chris says, and the 3 other votes are for you, Gwen. Gwen says that's how it goes, standing up before Chris reveals nobody is going home. This is a non-elimination round. Heather says whatever, we'll get you out soon enough. In confessional, Heather says that currently the footage is like her own get out of jail free card. Once she reveals it, her elimination is null and void, and instead those 3 remaining idiots are gone. It's too bad Tyler and Duncan are gone. I would have loved to see both their faces to being outsmarted by someone who didn't train. Alejandro says in confessional that this footage is his get out of jail free card. If he's eliminated, he will expose Katie, Izzy, and Owen and eliminate them all. Owen is the only one I'm thinking about keeping for a minute, but even he will go soon enough. Episode 9 begins with Katie practicing her punching form, not knowing when she'll have the chance to train again, with Alejandro watching over the team, and Owen says he knows. His jaw is getting weaker. Izzy says he should try biting Alejandro's head off, getting scared looks from the two, and Izzy says, I'm kidding. Probably. Alejandro tells Heather that she isn't slick. She should get rid of that disc if she knows what's good for her. Heather says that's up to her to decide. Besides, she doesn't have it on her. Heather quickly says not to try anything. There's a camera above them. Alejandro says she's lucky. Heather in confessional says she just had to get out of that one encounter. Now Alejandro won't think she has the disc on her, and he'll waste his time searching for it. I doubt he'd try anything, but you never know with these weirdos. Baki tells him that right now their visualization may be less vivid than others, but try to envision anyone. Lashana makes Harold in her head, but it morphs into Alejandro and she snaps out of her visualization. Lashana in confessional says it's just so hard not to love Alejandro. I mean, have you seen those specs? Lindsay says, hey, Tyler's back, pointing to the imagination created version of Tyler. Lindsay Izzy hugging him once again. Lashana quickly goes to trying to make her perfect idealized version of Alejandro while DJ is cooking an entire meal in his mind. Eva asks Harold why he isn't doing it, and Harold says that all he sees in his mind is failure. Eva asks if he's okay, and Harold says physically yes, but his pride is severely wounded. Cody tells Gwen not to worry, he's on her side. I mean, she'd never liked Duncan, right? Gwen says she doesn't know, and Cody says to wait, there's no way she actually does like Duncan. Gwen says she doesn't know, okay? Trent became a weirdo when Duncan was there for her. Cody says he was there for her and yet she isn't head over heels for him. Gwen says to give it a rest already. He has Sierra, doesn't he? Cody says he can't believe she actually is a boyfriend stealer. Gwen says she didn't steal anyone's boyfriend. Window shopping is not a crime. Courtney and Sierra discuss their plans, and in confessional, Sierra says she doesn't know what she'll do at the next vote. She can vote off Courtney to bring Heather further, but I can't really trust Courtney either. Maybe I should just throw the next few challenges so me and Cody can be the last two remaining. Chris tells them that today's challenge is in Paris, France. Lindsay says she's so happy to be here with Tyler. Chris says, that's weird, Baki. Can you stop teaching everyone your creepy techniques? Baki says he didn't think she could do it, honestly. Chris says, whatever. Today's challenge will have the teams locate broken pieces of famous statues and put them together. The first team to do so will fly to the next location in style. The last team will have to say hello to me at elimination. Now to give you some motivation, we're gonna have animals chasing you. Team Chris reach the lasers and Alejandro tells Izzy to use her parkour skills to get through. Izzy says she won't do anything for him. Alejandro asks if she forgot he has the blackmail on her, and Izzy sighs, using her skills to get through the lasers with ease. Alejandro says amazing job, and Izzy says that he looked better further away. Team Victory has no issues whatsoever and just have a nice challenge performance. Baki says it may just be him, but these challenges are way too easy. Lashana says it wouldn't be right for Team Victory to lose. Alejandro tells Katie that she needs to sabotage Team Amazon, but Katie says no. Alejandro asks what she's saying, and Katie says she won't do it. Owen says to do it, Katie. Alejandro is trying to help us. Heather says there's no need as Team Amazon finishes next. Gwen trying to cheer with Courtney, but Courtney tells her to not even think about it. Gwen in confessional says she can't blame her for trying. Heather in confessional says change of plans. Maybe keeping Gwen is the play. I mean, as long as she's here, the focus will always be on her. But who should I get rid of? Chris tells Team Chris he will be seeing them at elimination. Team Victory, congrats on your immunity win. Alejandro goes into the film room before confessional. Chris welcomes them to the elimination. This is the most shocking or least shocking elimination depending on who you ask. Alejandro, you're out, bro chacho. Alejandro says he doesn't think so. You see, I have proof Izzy and Katie broke the rules. He pulls out the disc and Chris plays it. It's showing Katie and Izzy in the hangar, but Owen has been digitally removed from the footage. Alejandro in confessional says he earned that much after standing up to Katie. Chris says that his hands are tied. He did tell them not to go back to the hangar. Katie says no, you said we couldn't break the lock on the hangar. Chris asks if she can teleport and Katie says no. Chris then says his hands are tied. Katie, Izzy, you both are eliminated. Owen says he'll miss Izzy and Izzy kisses Owen goodbye. Katie says Alejandro will get what's coming to him. Alejandro says she underestimates him immensely. Izzy tells Katie to hurry up. Training continues when they land. They'll hike their way back home. She jumps out and Katie tells Izzy to wait for her, jumping out after her. Owen is sad, but Alejandro says not to worry, he's still here for him. Episode 10 begins with Owen saying he can't believe that they're gone, Al. Alejandro says, yep, it's a travesty. Owen says, I mean, I loved Izzy, Al. Alejandro asks for Owen to please stop calling him that, and Owen says, what, Al? I'm sorry, Al. I'll stop, Al. Alejandro says, yes, thank you. Please stop immediately. Owen says, you got it, Al. Sorry. Heather says that they're looking worse for wear, and Alejandro says she's got it wrong. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Heather tells Gwen to wait up, and Gwen says why, so he can make fun of me again. Heather says, oh no, she thinks she'll want to hear what she has to say. Gwen says fine, being led away by Heather as Courtney asks Sierra if this is bad, and Sierra says nah, only to say in confessional that this is terrible. Heather is already playing the field. How'd she figure out she was after Gwen? Cody asks Baki if he can punch him one time, and Baki asks why. He's in the middle of something, fighting a giant mantis. Cody says that he needs to punch something. He feels his muscles trying to explode outward and he needs to contain it with pressure. Baki yells for DJ and DJ says that he's on it, running to Cody and shaking him at place at hypersonic speeds, placing him down where DJ would ask if that helped, and Cody says yeah, his whole body calmed down. DJ says it was the technique he learned from Retsu. It stabilizes your body's core. It usually isn't that aggressive though. You are really tense. Cody in confessional says nah, I'm not tense. I just have so many muscles bottled up and condensed that it may as well be a weight on my shoulder. Harold Harold tells Lashana that working out will help her, and Lashana asks why. Is he calling her fat? Harold says no, she knows more than anyone he loves her for how she is. Lashana asks why does he want her to train so bad then, and Harold says because Baki sees a lot of potential in her. Lashana says you are great in so many ways, but have you ever asked me if I wanted to be a fighter? Harold says well no, and Lashana interrupts and says exactly, if someone attacks it's up to you to protect me as a martial artist. And besides, I'd humiliate you enough if I started training. Lindsay says that's not true, Harold is incredibly strong, he beat Dustin after all. Lashana says that's true, but she hasn't seen my style. Baki would be intrigued and cue in just to go back to fighting when Lashana says that she sees red and when she awakens the opponent is down. Chris lands the plane in the ocean and all the castmates are pushed out onto it, DJ freaking out until Baki throws him a cushion. Chris shows up in a boat before saying it's so good to be back home in Newfoundland. Heather says hold on Chris, it looks like Team Chris is missing some members again. Alejandro says ha ha, your clever insult will not impact our superior performance now that the deadweight is gone. Chris tells them that the first challenge of the day is to reach a set of boats and row them all the way to shore, and for added excitement, Team Chris's boat has a motor since they have only 2 members. Heather says oh great, it's not like 3 of us on Team Amazon aren't martial arts trained. Chris says that's a good point, your fault for not training over the year-long break. He leaves on the boat and Courtney suggests the team swim in a V formation like geese to go faster. Gwen says she agrees and Courtney says to stop brown-nosing snake. Gwen in confessional says that this is why she broke up with Trent. Relationships just make things messy. Alejandro makes it to the boat but then turns around to see Owen struggling and he throws a net to grab him before pulling him onto the boat while Team Amazon all make it first and get going. Team Victory is struggling because DJ is swimming slowly, being terrified of water. Lashana asks if he's for real and Baki shouts to him telling him he's just in the waters of the kitchen. Lashana asks what that even means, but DJ begins swimming to the boat with superhuman speed, making it and thanking Baki again. They end up leaving last. Baki tells Eva they'll never make it like this, and Eva says to leave it to her, jumping out of the boat along with Baki who helped push it to shore, making it first and upsetting Alejandro immensely, to which Owen would say not to worry Al, second is a nice place to be. Alejandro says that maybe someone like Owen is designed for second place, but not him, not Alejandro Buermerto. Owen in confessional says that Al gets really scary when he gets that focus in his eyes. It reminds him of his friend Jack when he talks about his dad or Baki. Courtney asks if that's Duncan on the Rocky Mountain, to which Heather would say no, it's not, she's probably just hallucinating or catching Sierra's craziness. Courtney jumps out anyway along with Gwen. Heather says they won't wait for them, but Cody says they need their entire team to make it there. Heather says fine, hurry up, they've already lost their lead to Team Victory, might as well make it to last place so she can vote one of them off. Sierra says that's why she likes her, always thinking about the game. Heather says to shut up before she changes the target to her. Team Amazon is still missing by the time Chris arrives, with Sierra telling Cody that they should get to know each other while they're alone, and Heather says hello, she's here? Cody says yeah, and besides it's better to keep our wits about us. Cody in confessional says wow, she's my kind of girl, but when she gets crazy it really ruins things. Gwen and Courtney climb up and see that it's only a rock that is coincidentally shaped like Duncan. Both of them are disappointed and Courtney remarks that Gwen looks a little too disappointed for not liking him. Gwen says whatever, it was a good looking rock. Courtney says to watch it, Snake. She won't like it when she's angry. Gwen says whatever. Unlike Courtney, she actually trained with someone. Besides Cody, she's the strongest on the team. Courtney shoves her off the mountain, Gwen grabbing her hand and pulling her down with her. Heather asks what that sound was. She sees both swimming to the boat, and Heather asks if they're satisfied, Gwen saying not at all. Sierra says that missing someone a lot can cause hallucinations. She sees Cody everywhere when he leaves for more than a few minutes. Cody in confessional says, see what I mean? Lashana says she can't kiss a fish like she means it. Alejandro tells Owen he's got this, just pretend it's Izzy. Owen grabs the fish and says he misses her so much. Baki tells Lashana just to imagine who she wants the most. Lashana closes her eyes and kisses it at the same time as Owen, both winning the challenge for their teams. Team Amazon finally make it, and Chris tells them that he's glad to see them. He's in a good mood, so there won't be any elimination tonight. Instead, Team Victory and Team Chris will enjoy a delicious fish and clam chowder dinner. Owen begs for the fish back, he just wants one more kiss. Alejandro says no, your fascination with it is weird. He throws it back into the water and Owen yells out for the fish, calling it Izzy. DJ tells Lashana that he's glad she got through that challenge. Who is she thinking about? Lashana says honestly, she's not sure. She thought she would have decided between Alejandro and Harold, but it was like both of them at the same time. DJ says, whoa, the fish kiss that good? Lashana says, hell no, she had to put in all the effort. DJ tells her to follow her heart. It's more honest than her brain is. Courtney in confessional asks, what's wrong with her? Was she really this upset about Duncan leaving? She could have always trained with Duncan or seen him, but she was focused focused on her degree instead. Maybe what she wants more than anything is more time with Duncan. Episode 11 begins with Team Chris being in first class, Owen still crying about Izzy, and Alejandro saying to put a sock in it. Owen says it doesn't make sense though, Al. I was in the hangar too. Why didn't I get eliminated? Alejandro says because he edited him out of the footage. Owen says why did he do that, and Alejandro chokes out that they're friends. Owen says that he's the best, Al, going for a hug that makes Alejandro immensely uncomfortable. Heather tells Baki that it's not often she sees him down here. Baki says yep, we just fell short to Owen and his innate talent to kiss fish. Gwen says wow, I haven't seen you that spiteful before, and Baki says that he holds no bitterness, before doing handstand push-ups on one finger. In confessional, Baki says that his restlessness is getting to him. He is aching for a good fight. He's not sure how long he can handle this. He may need some help. Sierra tells Courtney that she understands how sad she is, but she needs to remain in just long enough to get rid of Heather. Afterwards, they'll be happy to get rid of her, but for now she needs to stay in to make sure Heather doesn't hold any power. Cody says yeah, Heather is dangerous even without any formal training. Courtney says she's more than aware of that, but she wasted the only time she had with Duncan here and she'll never forgive herself for that. Lindsay says wouldn't it make more sense to win the entire thing to act as an apology to Duncan? Courtney says yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And after Duncan lost the finale last season, me winning is just the thing he needs. Sierra in confessional says great, wonderful time for Lindsay to have an idea that's actually genius. Eva is trying to shadowbox against someone but can't get a good mental image of who she's picturing. Eva asks Harold what Alejandro's style of fighting was, and Harold says he was what we weren't. Eva asks what that means, and DJ says not to worry about him, it's just that Alejandro had a fighting style that seemed tailor-made to counter them specifically. Baki stops doing his push-ups and listens in. Harold says yeah, nothing I did had any effect on him, it was like he knew what we were gonna do before we threw a punch. Duncan was the only one who got a clean hit, but it was only because I took the counterattack so Duncan could land the cord cut. This guy may be too much for even you, Baki. Baki says is that all? He's thoroughly disappointed. He goes back to doing normal pull-ups, and Lashana says he's probably just hiding just how psyched he is, right? Eva says no, he can't feel the intensity anymore. He's scaled himself to Alejandro in his mind. Lashana says that means he could be wrong though, right? I mean, underestimating a martial artist is a recipe for death. Baki says there's always that possibility, but he will take his chances. If Alejandro surprises him, he will adjust accordingly, but Alejandro may not even be on you Amani's level. If all he did was beat you 4 due to knowing what you 4 could do, then he's not a fighter like us at all. He's a student trying to pass an exam set by Yujiro. Chris and Chef notice that the plane is out of gas and it begins to descend rapidly. Alejandro grabs onto Owen as Owen says that they're gonna die. Alejandro in confessional says that Owen might die, but he's sure Owen has enough cushion to save him. Cody grabs onto Sierra again, doing his best not to crush her this time, and Harold makes sure Lashana doesn't fall off the plane, Lashana being entranced by Harold in that moment. In confessional, she says she's done with Alejandro. Harold just saved her life again. Everyone is luckily safe, and when they get out, Chris and Chef all argue about whose fault it was for blowing the budget. Tokugawa calls saying that they will have fuel soon, and also some auditors to see who exactly blew the budget. Both Chris and Chef saying in confessional that they both spent about $1 million each on extravagant things for themselves. Chris says that for now, today's challenge requires each member jumping off a cliff and searching for Chef's gold karaoke chains while watching out for electric eels and sharks. When one is finished, they have to climb back up and tag someone else to go. Cody goes first, and his ultra condensed muscles make him immediately sink to the bottom, and he realizes that he's basically like a dumbbell in the water. Sierra says that Cody isn't coming back up, saying she's gonna dive in after him, but Heather pulls her back, saying that if she does that, then they will be punished. Baki dives in and pulls him out from below, bringing him to shore before telling him to remain on land from now on. Baki dives back down, and Alejandro dives after him, Baki noticing the chains and grabbing them before Alejandro suddenly pokes him in the eyes and Baki drops them, allowing Alejandro to swim to land, where Alejandro jumps all the way up on top of the cliff, and Baki is impressed, letting a bit more of his focus come back. Chris tells him that Team Chris wins part 1. They'll get helmets in part 2 of the challenge, where they'll be riding a longboard down a bobsled course built by Chef. Whichever team has the shortest time wins. Cody and Sierra are first, and they complete the course in 47.36 seconds. Alejandro goes next with Owen, and he uses Owen's heaviness to give them early momentum on the slopes, but ultimately end up slower with 58.49 seconds, being held up on anything that is an upward slope. DJ and Harold are the last ones to go, but DJ asks where the necklace is, and everyone realizes that DJ's curse-nullifying necklace is gone. Harold tells him not to worry, the strength is inside of him, he just has to focus. DJ tries his best, but his curse turns out to be real, as animals start jumping from the waters below and the skies above. In confessional, Baki says that he didn't actually think the curse was real. DJ goes soaring off the longboard, and Chris says they've been disqualified. team victory are finally going to elimination. This is a huge cause for celebration for everyone besides Gwen and Cody. Gwen tells DJ he'll get it next time, and DJ says he just doesn't know when he could have lost it. Alejandro in confessional holds the necklace and says that he got it when DJ fell into the water at the beginning of the episode 10 challenge. DJ flailing around was the right opportunity to sneak up right from under him and take it from his neck while he was worried about drowning. Cody tells Baki not to quit or anything, and Baki said he wouldn't dream of it in this season. DJ tells them that he has nothing to say about his performance, it's clear he should go. Lindsay says that she doesn't get it. If the necklace was really that powerful, how come when you got it taken it didn't cause the curse? And it only activated when you realized it was gone? That feels a little silly, doesn't it? Baki says, yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say. DJ, that curse is all in your head. If you want to be eliminated for your performance, we'll accept it. But if you think the curse remains, then we have to keep you to prove it isn't actually real. DJ thinks for a moment and says, nah, Lindsay made a point, he can't argue. It's all in his head. Chris at elimination says that it's their first elimination and it's as boring as possible. 6 votes against DJ. Seriously, can you guys be a bit more dysfunctional? DJ apologizes but promises him that they should get more exciting from this point on. Baki tells DJ to say hi to his mom and Retsu for him, and DJ says definitely, jumping out of the plane. Heather tells Sierra that they're gonna vote off Gwen at the next vote, right? Sierra says yeah, are you? Heather says she's smarter than she took her for. Alright, fine, I'm planning on keeping Gwen a bit longer. Sierra says she was thinking of the same thing. Courtney has been getting more fight in her as of recently. Heather says it's a plan then, while in confessional, Sierra says she's keeping her options open if anything, she won't just hand the game to Heather. Episode 12 is an aftermath, but it'll be covered slightly as it had some plot scenes that matter. Tyler during his portion will say that Izzy, Katie, and Owen all deserve to leave for what they did. At least Alejandro didn't betray him. Jeff and Bridget both walk him through the votes, and Tyler realizes that Alejandro did betray him. His world comes crashing down as he realizes that Alejandro never cared about him at all, and he sits in the back not knowing how to handle himself. Katie asks if he figured it out, and Tyler says he did. She was right the entire time. Katie says good, because she's training with Izzy to beat him. Is he in or out? Tyler says even if there's only a slim chance at a rejoin, he has to help. Alejandro won't beat him like last time. Katie is happy to see him join the cause. Admittedly, he's the only real martial artist here, as DJ left to go train immediately with Retsu and Duncan left to train with Kosho, so Tyler's really her only option despite not wanting him more than those two. Episode 13 begins with Alejandro telling Lashana it's good to see her down here. They haven't spoken in a minute. Lashana says yeah, and she liked it better that way. Alejandro asks why she's being so crass, and Lashana says because while you ran, Harold stayed, and this is what he gets. Suddenly kissing Harold, which makes Alejandro grimace in disgust, as Owen says he's happy to see that they're finally together, to which Alejandro tells him to shut up, and Owen says he's sorry. Baki asks them if they're thirsty. He's parched personally. Lindsay says she'll take a sparkling water from the first class, and Baki says that Cody does owe him, so he'll make sure to ask. As he walks, he hears someone talking, and as he checks in, someone puts a burlap sack over his head, and Chris tells him please not to freak out. This is just a part of the challenge. Please don't kill anyone. Baki says okay, you'll just nap then. All the competitors are told to parachute out to their next destination, and Lindsay says, oh man, she didn't even get her sparkling water yet. Lashana says, yeah, speaking of which, where is Baki? Harold asks what if something happened to him, and Eva says that if someone took out Baki, the good news is that they'll see him soon enough. The contestants land in London, and Chris tells them that today's challenge will require teams to catch Jack the Ripper. There are clues hidden in various locations. Heather asks what happened to Baki. Don't tell me that he was caught, and Chris says he was. This immediately worries everyone, and Chris says good, be cautious, not stupid like usual. Gwen says they'll be fine, she did a report on Jack the Ripper in 6th grade. Courtney says that's surprisingly useful from her. Chris announces that the first part of the challenge is to strip a guard and search for a clue. Alejandro tells Owen to get to it, and Owen says that he doesn't really like seeing a wrinkly bum. Alejandro says whatever, let him do it. He grabs the hat and the clue falls out immediately. Courtney says Gwen should do it, and Heather asks why Sierra won't do it, and Sierra says the only one she'd strip is Cody. Cody asks if she can please do this for them. If she does, he will hang out with her tonight instead of Gwen. Sierra says he better keep his promise, yanking off a shoe where a clue resides. Chris says these guards are a bunch of prudes, and Chef asks if he wants to traumatize these kids. They have the super doctor, not the super therapist. Chris says fair point. Harold says he doesn't want to do it, he just got with Lashana. He doesn't want the first naked person he sees to be an old man. Eva says not to worry, placing a crude drawing of Tyler over the face of their guard. Lindsay goes to him and helps him get his jacket it off a clue falling out, and Lindsay thanks Tyler, kissing his cheek before going back to the team with it, telling them to see what Tyler just gave them. Team Amazon make it first due to their superior knowledge, with Heather saying the desk in it is creepy, only for Courtney to say that isn't a desk, that's a torture rack. Chef reveals that the next part is to stretch somebody out on the rack to open the hatch inside. Gwen says that Courtney has been giving her plenty of grief. How about she pay her back? Courtney says that she doubts Sierra will let that happen, right Sierra? She realizes that Cody and Sierra are gone. Sierra asks for a kiss from Cody, and Cody says that they need to get back to the challenge. Sierra asks for just one more kiss, only for the Ripper to see them both, and Cody tells her to run, he'll handle this. Sierra says it's her fault they got caught, let her help. Cody says they'll do it together then. Courtney says that this is not right, she'll make sure to call her lawyers. Heather says yeah, if she wins she'll give her 10% of the cut. Courtney says really? And Heather says no, spinning the wheel further to stretch Courtney before getting the clue and running off. Courtney yelling to help her out, only for Gwen to tell her after the challenge. Courtney then screams as the Ripper catches her. Harold says to let him do it, and Lashana says no, you're the only one who knows anything about London. Lindsay said she'd love to be a few inches taller, just a few though, she doesn't want to be some 6-foot freak. She gets stretched out, taking it like a champ as the hatch opens and they let Lindsay free. Lindsay says that her back has never felt better before her back cracks, and she says that her back has never felt worse. Alejandro gets on the rack and is completely silent as Owen opens the hatch, and Alejandro snaps the ropes as he stretches himself out, saying a few more inches and he would have actually gotten a good stretch. The next part has Team Amazon arriving to the banquet hall first, Heather saying she will sit out here and make sure she is on the lookout. Gwen says whatever, going inside and grabbing a ball that has a note inside and quickly trying to go back to tell Heather, but she's gone. Gwen says whatever, she's been carrying this challenge anyway, they would have lost 10 times over without her. You hear that, team? She doesn't need them anymore. She walks off frustrated. Team Victory make it next, seeing the guard dogs as Lindsay says ooh, pretty puppy, fetch. She throws a bone and they all run away as Eva says that honestly, Lindsay has really shown her talent these last few episodes. Lindsay says she found it, pulling out a necklace and putting it on. Lashana says they're looking for clues, and Lindsay asks why they didn't tell her earlier. She found one. She shows off the clue and Team Chris enter as Team Victory leave. Alejandro grabs a clue and runs out as Owen tells him to wait up, falling behind and being captured by the Ripper. Gwen picks the wrong spot entirely, with Harold reaching the same place moments later. Alejandro is the only one to find the right place and the Ripper surrenders. Back in the plane, Courtney says that she really carried them, and Heather says yeah, you really proved you don't need us. Gwen says you heard that, and Sierra says that there's cameras everywhere. Gwen tries to say she was just frustrated, and Heather says yeah, sure. Alejandro reveals the killer to be the super doctor Correja. Correja says that Chris needed someone that wouldn't immediately die trying to capture them, so I was the only option. Capturing Baki was the scariest part. Harold falls to his knees saying he failed in the challenge he should have excelled in, vote him out. Chris says to stop being so melodramatic, you're safe. Your team ended off with 4 members, the most of everyone, while Team Chris captured Correja. Team Chris wins, but you get second place. Team Amazon, since you don't have any W over the other 2 teams in this challenge, you'll be voting someone out. Chris tells them that today's vote is going to be a tough vote, right Courtney and Gwen? Gwen says to not waste her time anymore. She stands up and Chris says, you kids are big enough to decide when you deserve to leave. He throws her the parachute and Gwen says, don't get me wrong, she doesn't want to leave, but she knows that she messed up. Cody runs to Gwen to tell her to not stop training, and Gwen says not to worry about that, she'll be back if another season comes, she's sure. Courtney tells her just to leave already, boyfriend stealer. Gwen says she didn't steal anything as she jumps off the plane. Heather in confessional says that this was the toughest elimination. She wanted to do both options, but ultimately landed on Gwen since Courtney is still Courtney. It's only a matter of time until she messes things up. Cody is still Cody deep down, and Sierra's crazy. She's good for at least one more vote on her team, and then she can deploy her secret weapon to go scorched earth. Only problem is that now it only gets rid of Harold and Alejandro. Soon enough, it'll only be Alejandro at this rate. As Gwen is falling, she says, yeah, Courtney, I did have feelings for Duncan, suck it. Before saying that it seems like Courtney actually got the last laugh, her parachute getting stuck on the London Bridge, and she says, aw, give me a break. Episode 14 begins with Baki asking Cody if he can just punch him once, and Cody says sure, before turning and seeing the immense bloodlust and asking if he can put a brain check on that. Everyone else is in the cafeteria, and Heather says they need to get rid of Baki, and Courtney agrees, saying she thought the thought of Baki being murdered was bad, but Baki may be the one who kills us. Lashana tells them to stop talking crazy, he'd never kill them, right Harold? Harold says honestly he's never seen Baki go this long without a real fight, he's not sure. Eva says to stop being so paranoid, Baki Baki would target Alejandro first. Alejandro's eyes widen and in confessional says that he was ready to face Baki at like 80% and winning with his secret technique, but if he's coming at him with full intensity, he's not even sure he can handle that. Lindsay tells Baki that he should punch Owen if he needs an outlet. She does that all the time, and Owen says, I wanna live, thank you very much. Chris comes over the intercom and tells Baki to meet them at the front. Baki says it's about time. Tokugawa is there and he asks Baki if this is what he wants. I mean, a tournament in 2 seasons in a row is a bit redundant, don't you think? Baki says to cut him a break. He wasn't in last season's tournament. He was eliminated a challenge early. If he knew he had that under his sleeve, he would have stayed 1 vote longer. Tokugawa asks if that's what all this tantrum throwing was about. He didn't know it mattered that much to him, and Baki says fighting is literally his entire thing. Why wouldn't he be pissed? Tokugawa says fair point, so you want a tournament and you can play fair before that? It might be a minute. Baki asks what the challenge is today, and Tokugawa says that this one might be up his alley. Don't disappoint him by fighting someone on the plane. Now chef, let's go over those finances, shall we? Baki walks out and asks everyone what they're looking at him like that for. Eva asks if he's okay, and Baki says yeah, he's actually never been better. How about an arm wrestling match, Alejandro? Alejandro says he'll pass. The campers arrive in Greece and Chris explains the challenge. Today they'll be going through some competitions. The team to get the most gold medals win and will be rewarded with first class to the next destination. Round 1 will be hunting for gold in a maze of pillars guarded by a bear. Baki says he'll do it, making everyone become a bit worried about volunteering. Cody says fine, he'll go. Owen gets pushed forward by Alejandro and Owen is scared as Chris thanks him for volunteering. Baki runs in and by the time Cody and Owen reach a further point, they see Baki standing over the bear and Baki turns to them before saying that he'd love to keep chatting but he has to win. Cody gathers his confidence and runs forward, Baki just jumping and pushing off of his head to propel forward, Cody slamming into a pillar. Owen doesn't even try, Baki running and giving the medal to Chris. Sierra asks if Cody's okay, and Cody says that he thinks he has a concussion. Chris explains the next part to be wrestling, and Baki asks if he can go again, and Chris says that he could only go once. Baki says fine, he'll just coach from the sidelines. Eva says to let her do this. Alejandro says he guesses it's his time to compete. Courtney says she'll go, grapples are what she excels at. Courtney immediately tries grappling onto Eva, and Eva just steps to the side, dodging her grasp as Alejandro jumps several dozen feet into the air. Eva takes a stance ready to hit him when he gets down, but Alejandro begins to kick Eva over and over, seemingly flying in the air, with each kick going into the next. Eva tries to grab Alejandro's foot, but he just pulls it back and hits her with the other one. Eventually, she tries to grab both, but Courtney suddenly tackles her onto the ground and Alejandro stands triumphantly over them both. Lashana tells Baki that was a lackluster job, and Baki says, oh shoot, he forgot to say something. He got so engrossed that he forgot. Alejandro passes by Baki and says, impressive, right? Baki says, not at all, anyone can copy a move. I haven't seen anything that conveys you are the one that's fighting. Alejandro says if that's what he thinks, then he can't be helped. All that matters is that someone wins. It doesn't matter what techniques you use as long as you survive. Baki says he doesn't have to prove it to him, and Alejandro leaves frustrated. The final competition is a hurdles race. Heather says she can do this at least, and Alejandro tells him that since there's nobody with actual talent left, he will do this backwards on his hands to give them a chance. Heather says that she hopes he doesn't cry when she wins, and Alejandro would say he'd never cry about the terms he made. Harold says to let him. This guy needs to be taught a lesson in humility. The race starts and Harold is doing amazing along with Heather. Alejandro in confessional saying he didn't think he was that rusty. He should be miles ahead of them by now. He needs to make sure to incorporate this back into his workouts. Harold begins to pass Heather and Heather slaps the glasses off of Harold's face, his vision blurring, and he hits the next hurdle and wipes out. Alejandro says that was a good ploy, but it won't help her against him, just try it. Alejandro falls on the last hurdle as he gets so cocky he runs backwards, and Heather says she doesn't need to. Alejandro facepalms and in confessional says that's what he gets for being cocky. Never underestimate anyone. Chris says that everyone is tied. Everyone has 1 medal, so now the tiebreaker competition. 1 member on each team will wear wings and use them to fly up and grab a medal. Heather says Cody should do it, but Sierra says no, he's so dense that he wouldn't be able to float. She'll do it. Alejandro sighs and says he guesses he's going again, since Owen won't be able to fly. Owen says it's not his fault, he has a health condition. Alejandro asks what health condition could he possibly have. He sees how much he eats, and Owen says yeah, doctors call it poor impulse control. Lashana says not to look at her, she ain't gonna float. Lindsay says, does that mean she has to fly up? She's scared of falling. Baki says that he hates to say it, but she's the only one left. Harold says, yeah, Lashawna's a bit too luscious to do it. Sierra tells Alejandro that he better not target Cody if he knows what's good for him. Alejandro says, please, that string bean isn't worth my time, and he loves Gwen, not you. Sierra says he crossed the line with that one, tackling into Alejandro, and their wings tangled together and cause them both to fall as Lindsay is terrified and says that she wishes Tyler was here. She grabs onto the metal before falling, landing on Alejandro, who yells in agony. Lindsay saying sorry to him, calling him jalapeno. Lindsay says that wasn't nearly as bad as she thought. Chris says that Team Victory wins, again. Heather asks which team is going to elimination tonight, and Chris says neither of them. This is a non-elimination episode. Heather in confessional says this is such a waste of an episode. Might as well just make every episode an elimination. All this does is stall and allow for people to flip to cause more drama. Alejandro in confessional says he's not a failure. He was trained by Yujiro. It doesn't matter if he doesn't have his own moves. Just use what he learned and nobody will beat him. He just needs to stop getting into his head so much. Just focus on the mission, starting with getting rid of Owen. Owen says hi to Al, and Alejandro smiles, asking Owen if he knows he appreciates him, and Owen says he appreciates him too. Alejandro in confessional says he's thankful he's here because he's the constant reminder of how much he hates Baki's friends here, and especially Baki for giving up the finale to DJ. Owen makes my skin crawl. From this point on, I'm focusing on my performance, not sabotage. Episode 15 begins with Heather asking Alejandro if he has anything to say. He's abnormally quiet. Alejandro says no, he's focusing on the challenge. Heather says that's a first, probably will help him avoid being last considering they only have 2 members left. Alejandro says that would be the optimal outcome. Courtney tells Sierra to think about it. Final 5, her, Sierra, Cody, Lindsay, and Lashawna. She gets Cody there, but there's also 2 people with no formal martial arts training. Sierra says that is a good proposal. What do you think, Cody? Cody says he doesn't know. He's just trying to sleep before the next challenge. Hopefully this one doesn't have his body being a hindrance this time. Sierra in confessional says poor Cody. She wishes she could figure out a way to help him. About the alliance, it's not like she's against an alliance with Courtney. She just knows Courtney probably has an angle. She's as slippery as Heather at her best. Baki asks Harold if he grew any muscle at all. He knows it's a relaxed style, but he's kinda surprised that he still looks the same from Island. Lashawna says, you're telling me, I was hoping he'd grow a bit more muscle. Eva says not to underestimate it. Dobo told me about this old guy that mastered relaxation to the point where he couldn't be hurt anymore. Baki says, oh yeah, my dad fought him. Pissed him off as well when he decided to kill himself. Lashawna says what? Baki assures her it's okay, he's alright now. Lashawna says, you know what, Harold, keep me out of that weird world you live in because I don't want people coming back from the dead to be normal. Lindsay says if people are coming back from the dead, does that mean Tyler has a chance to come back? Baki says it's a long shot, but you can keep hoping for it. She does so, and Baki in confessional says that Lindsay's focus is incredibly strong. If he could just fuse the tenacity and strength of Lashawna with the blind naivety and optimism of Lindsay, then it would probably create the perfect fighter. Chris lands them outside of Area 51 for their next challenge. Teams will be required to break into Area 51 and bring back an intact alien artifact. First team that does so will get to go to their next decision in style. Alejandro says that he and Owen should split up, with Owen asking what he means by that. I mean, it's much safer to stick together. Alejandro says no, we're splitting up, and Owen says okay, Al. Alejandro tells Owen to test if the fence is electric for him before throwing him into the fence, where he gets zapped before Alejandro looks to the side and sees the entrance, walking away from Owen, who's being electrocuted. Owen in confessional says that he smells toast burning before falling off the seat. Baki says to follow him before hopping over the fence in one jump, and Lashawna says that the normal people are going this way. Come on, Lindsay. Harold tries to jump, but his foot gets caught and he gets electrocuted on the way down as Eva lands cleanly in one jump. Eva picks Harold back up, and Harold asks if Baki can get him in touch with that old guy he was talking about, and Baki apologizes, saying Kaio's are DJ and Retsu's territory, not his, but he'll be happy to ask DJ for him once they get back or land in China. Sierra says they will have to work together to throw Cody over the fence, but Heather points out that they can just walk through the entrance. Courtney saying thank God she didn't want to touch Cody. All 3 teams make it into the warehouse, where Alejandro finds a box, and when he looks inside, aliens are let out, zapping him as he powers through and captures one of them in the box, running away and hiding as the alien searches for anyone who may be in there. Alejandro says it was fun, but he's going to win immunity, running back to the entrance. Cody Cody looks around and goes into an alien pod, and alien Cody being created as a result. Sierra asks which one is the real one before saying she knows, hugging them both tight, and the alien explodes. Sierra says, whoops, I thought it would be a little stronger for an alien. Heather grabs an empty box and captures the alien as it attempts to attack Courtney. Then they begin all running out as Lashana asks if they found anything, and Baki sees the alien pod and goes into it. An alien Baki being created, and he picks him up and takes him back to Chris. Alejandro tells Owen to hurry up, and Owen says, sure thing, Alfredo. Alejandro says he finally did it, he's back, before stepping onto a landmine and being hurled to Chris where the alien did not survive the explosion. Chris pointing out that it's not alive, and Alejandro groans in pain and anguish over losing the challenge. Team Amazon are next, and Chris says Team Amazon are the winners. Team Victory make it next with the clone Baki, and Chris says that he would have preferred someone less deadly to be cloned personally, but good job saving yourselves from elimination. Heather says, yeah, good luck at elimination, Alfredo. Chris welcomes the two to elimination. Owen says he doesn't remember a coronation. Chris says, right. Time to cast the votes. Alejandro whispers to Owen to not overthink it, just stamp the one with his face on it. He walks to the confessional and stamps his own face as Chris says he's not sure how it happened. He did the votes as mostly a formality, but somehow it ended in an actual decision. Never doing that again. Owen, buddy, time for you to go. Owen says time to go where? And Alejandro says it's the end of the line. He walks him to the exit and says Owen was really the only one he could have brought this far. He's stupid enough not to think he's evil just by one heartfelt statement. The fact is he was always replaceable, and you know what the best part was? I never liked him for a second. I was dreaming of this. Owen snaps out just in time to hear Alejandro never liked him, and as Alejandro places the parachute on him and pushes him, Owen grabs onto Alejandro's arm and says that wasn't true, right? He hallucinated it, right? You don't actually hate me, right, Al? Alejandro stares at him with the same sly, venomous smile before saying to remember this, because for once I'm letting you down instead of the other way around. He lets go of Owen, and Owen screams in fear and agony from the betrayal as he falls out of the plane. Alejandro says finally some peace and quiet. Chris says yep, and you should know now that if you lose a challenge you're the one leaving. Alejandro says that this was the last loss he needed. Episode 16 begins with Alejandro trying to relax but being interrupted by the grunting of Team Victory training, and he tells them to put a sock in it. Some of them work out earlier so they can rest before the challenge itself. Lashana asks why he thinks he's gonna last for long anyway. I mean, it's obvious you're the next one up on the chopping block. Alejandro says yes, normally I would be, but I just have been plucking off the dead weight. Harold says, wait, you don't mean that you viewed Owen, Tyler, Katie, and Izzy as dead weight, right? Alejandro shrugs and says that he calls a spade a spade. He leaves to get some breakfast, and in first class, Cody says that this is what he needed. His muscles were getting restless. Sierra asks if he needs a massage, and Cody says last time she poked his pressure points to see how he fidgeted. Sierra says, but she knows the answer now, and Heather says, hey, creepy girl, stop trying to get into his personal bubble before the show becomes TV mature. Chris comes over the intercom and says, indeed, get ready for the next challenge, guys. Courtney groans asking why they can't wait a few more minutes. She was enjoying this. Chris then tells them that the next challenge will take place in the Australian outback. The first part will be catching one of several emus and then riding them to Hanging Rock. This journey will take almost 2 days. Heather says, oh good, Alejandro, you have 2 full days to realize how bad you've messed up this season. Lashana says she just noticed that. What are you gonna do now that you've ran out of people to manipulate? Alejandro says he's gonna give his 100%. Baki says he hopes that's true. He hasn't been impressed by him so far. Alejandro asks why everyone is getting on his case. Focus on your own damn team. He catches an emu and rides off first before telling them that if they want, they can watch until he disappears over the horizon since they seem infatuated with him. Cody tries to get onto the emu and it struggles, and Cody says not to dare fall over. He's had enough grief about his training for a few challenges now. Harold says that the secret to mounting one is dominance. He yells at one of them to stay, and the emu pulls Harold's pants down and laughs as Courtney goes over and says this one is hers. It reminds her of Duncan, taking the emu away. Lashana says that these stupid emus are too hard to wrangle, and Baki says really it was easy for him and Eva. He quickly captures 3 emus, and he whispers that if any of them try to run, he'll make sure to make a delicious soup out of their bones. Lashana says they can't understand English, and Baki says you're right, but animals understand intent. Go ahead, get on. Lashana and Lindsay get on theirs with no issue, but as Harold tries to jump on his, the emu suddenly sidesteps and Harold falls to the ground, saying that he may not look it, but he also trained. trained. The emu rams his head into Harold's chest, and Harold grits his teeth in frustration as he grabs a hold of the emu to get onto it. Baki tells him they may as well get comfortable, this is going to be a long trip, and Lindsay asks if anyone has any fun travel games. Courtney whispers to Heather that they need to split up the power couple, and Heather says definitely. In confessional, she says she's just playing the field again. She wanted to blindly trust Sierra, but she gets the feeling that those two aren't going to split apart. Might as well make things interesting if she's going to fall to the minority after this vote. Cody says he isn't sure what he's going to do when he gets home. He can't really go back to training with Oliva. Oliva already taught him everything he could know. Sierra asks if he's thought about fighting professionally, and Cody says he always just wanted strength to protect the person he loved most. That's the entire reason Oliva trained him over any of the others who tried to become students of his. I know I'm not a fighter like Baki or a manipulator like Heather, I'm just trying to strike for the little guy, you know? Sierra in confessional says, oh my god, he just said he went to train for the person he loves the most. There's no way that he's referring to anyone besides her. Cody says this is to say that he thinks Sierra might be the one, but can he be honest, he doesn't want his space invaded so much. Sierra says that though it pains her, she will respect his boundaries because she is happier than she's ever been before. Harold asks Baki if he thinks he can be on Alejandro's level, and Baki says that Alejandro isn't really a level to reach. You were put in a bad matchup. If someone spent a year only preparing for him, he'd have a tough time too. What you're fighting isn't a weakness of skill, but of knowledge. Harold says that he's learning everyone's techniques so he'll never be caught off guard. Baki says no, that's not how a fighter operates. The only reason you'd feel the need to study your opponent is if you don't think you can win without it. I trust my techniques that I've learned because making sure I perform my best is the only thing I can do to calm my nerves. Don't fight to be Alejandro, fight to be Eva. She has more discipline than me considering where she started, but that's what training with Dopo gets you. Harold says he can't believe he's been proven obsolete this early. He won the last season after all. Baki says he knows, but that's how fighting is. Always a bigger fish. And believe me, your style is not obsolete by any means. LaShawn asks Eva what's up, and Eva says that honestly she's been wanting to fight Alejandro. He's meant to be powerful, right? LaShawn asks why not Baki, and Eva points out she isn't at his level yet. Although it would be fun to do, she doubts it would be productive. LaShawn says that she won't know until she tries, and isn't like a huge principle of martial arts just fighting to learn, not to win? Eva says yeah, but there's a clear hierarchy she can't overstep too hard. It's not like she'd challenge Yujiro. Lindsay asks why she doesn't fight Harold, and LaShawn says no, Harold is already in a slump. He doesn't need her putting him into another one. He's going to train with some old guy after all who came back from death, so he doesn't need to have his ego destroyed to the point where he summons ghosts to train with. Harold hears it and says if he had a choice, he'd bring back Musashi, the strongest swordsman in Japanese history. Baki says he doesn't buy the hype personally. Alejandro reaches it first, and Chris says that it's rare to see him in first. He's sure it won't last. He throws him an electric razor, and Alejandro asks what he will do with this. Chris says just to wait for the others. Team Amazon make it next with Team Victory being last, and Chris tells them that the next challenge is to bungee jump to grab sheep before shearing them to reveal their team emblem. If they don't get it, they must jump back down, wasting vital time. Alejandro goes first, saying he had to do everything on his team before, now it's just official. Alejandro jumps and begins shearing the sheep before seeing the emblem, and Chris says victory has been secured for Team Chris, but second place is still up for grabs. Baki says good for him, he deserves something after losing everything, and Harold says this one's a dud. Baki says it was fun, Team Amazon, but he isn't gonna lose someone today. He jumps down and closes his eyes, letting instinct pick the sheep, and as they shear it, they find the Team Victory emblem on it. Alejandro in confessional says that this is how it always should have been. The only thing that could make it better is if Team Victory were going to elimination, but he's finally back on top of the pecking order. Chris welcomes Team Amazon to elimination. Tonight, 3 of you will keep your dream of being on a plane with freaks and me, Chris McLean, and 1 of you will have to say goodbye to it. Now, time to read the votes. 1 vote Courtney, 1 vote Sierra. Sierra is shocked and Cody quickly says no, this can't be. Chris tells him to stop being such a baby. There's still 2 more votes. 1 vote Courtney, 1 vote Sierra. We have a tie. Today's tiebreaker challenge is to feed a koala cub eucalyptus leaves without their hands. Courtney in confessional says she didn't suffer through 16 episodes of this crappy show just to leave now because of a budget panda. Sierra's smile creeps out the koala, who quickly tries to hide in the corner while Courtney's face gets clawed up while trying to feed them eucalyptus from her mouth. Sierra in confessional says that she couldn't let Courtney win. It's not like Chris said she couldn't touch the koala, just the leaves. Sierra grabs the koala and forces its mouth open before beginning to spit eucalyptus leaves into its mouth, and as both try their hardest, Chris says that we have our winner. Courtney having finished right as Sierra finished spitting the final piece into its mouth. Cody says, no, this can't be right, and Heather asks if he really thought they were that stupid as to allow a power couple to win. Cody says, power couple? Being confused, he goes to Sierra, who's crying over her failure, before Cody says that their biggest mistake was not eliminating them together. Chris says not to tempt him, before everyone showing visible disgust as Cody kisses Sierra. Chris says this is why he throws them out before this disgusting act of emotional vulnerability is shown. Sierra says it's okay. Cody was always the champion to her. She jumps out, and in confessional, Cody says, no, Sierra, you were more than just someone to use to get further. You are my Maria. I swear, I'll avenge you. Chef walks out of the room Tokugawa was in, and Chris asks what's the damage, are they fired? Chef says he's on thin ice, practically paper thin like gas station toilet paper, but he took responsibility for Chris's spending, costing him his bonuses and giving him a pay cut as well. Chris says he'd do that for him, and Chef says, yeah, you're the host, I'm just the chef. You can always get another one of me. You're the one bringing the life to the franchise. Chris says, are you kidding? The way you make these kids suffer, it may as well be an art. Nobody does it as well as you. If you go, I go. Chef says he appreciates that, man. Alejandro sits in first class and says this is what he deserves, some peace and quiet. He seems happy for a moment before sighing and saying it's kind of boring by himself. He wishes someone like Tyler was here to talk to at least. Episode 17 starts with Cody glaring at Heather and Courtney, and the tension is palpable. Heather says to stop looking at her like that, geek. You and her were getting way too close. Courtney says yeah, and it's not like he was on her side when Duncan left. Cody says that anyone can justify their actions if they act like the victim. Alejandro comes down and LaShawn asks what he wants, as Alejandro says that if anyone wants to come to first class, he won't mind. Only like 1 or 2 people though, he doesn't want too much noise. LaShawn says yeah, we're passing on that, but Cody says he'll take it. Heather tells him not to make a deal with the devil, but Cody says that's rich from her, a she-devil. Courtney laughs and Heather tells her to shut up. Baki looks at Alejandro and can already see what he refuses to admit. In confessional, Baki says that he's trying to run on Yujiro hardware, but he's not a Hanma at all. He was right, it's a second Yu Amanai. Harold says he can't believe the audacity, and Eva says inside of the strong facade lays a man dying trying to be something he's not. Lashana says that's weirdly philosophical coming from her, and Eva apologizes, but Lashana says, nah, it's better than you just being a rageaholic. Lindsay says she doesn't get it. If Alejandro is lonely, why doesn't he just ask for a friend? Courtney says because not everyone has the simplistic mind she does, and Lindsay says thanks, Cortland. Baki goes to first class, and Cody says it's nice here. Baki tells Alejandro to stop kidding himself, and Alejandro says he doesn't know what he's talking about. Baki says, oh yeah, because I can tell how lonely and sad you truly are. Alejandro grabs Baki's collar as he says to say that to his face, and Baki asks why he's getting so defensive if it's not true. Alejandro says he doesn't like people slandering him by thinking he needs simple things like connection or anything like that. He was trained by Yujiro after all. Baki says shut up, my dad is strong, but he's not a teacher. He wants you to be useful and then he will just get rid of you. Did you even think about what you'd do after getting your revenge on me? I bet you think Yujiro will just say good job, sport, and give you the attention you want, right? That's not reality. Yujiro is cold, heartless, and only wants to use you to get what he wants. So how about you stop while you have something left to save? Alejandro tells Baki to get out, and Baki says he's so disappointed. Alejandro has no idea. He's not a Hanma, no matter how many times he trains with Yujiro. He leaves, and Cody in confessional says he hears what Baki is saying, but if he's gonna get rid of those 2 snakes, he needs allies. Cody asks if he wants to join an alliance, and Alejandro says sure, merge has to be soon anyway. Chris interrupts everyone to say that the challenge is gonna start in right now. The plane skids on ice, and Chris tells them they've just landed in Sweden. Lashana says great, because the Yukon and Germany weren't cold enough. Chris says he's always looking for more ways to make them suffer. Today's challenge is to turn their pile of tools and pieces into an actual structure. Alejandro asks if they have instructions, and Chris says, ooh, he did, but then they got shredded and left in the outback, so unless you want to go back, you're just stuck with what you have. Heather tells Chris that he's gonna get what's coming to him soon enough. Courtney says they should just work on laying out their supplies to know what they're using, but Courtney accuses her of just trying to slow them down so she can eliminate her. She knows this plan already. Courtney says if she wanted Heather gone, she would have teamed with Sierra and Cody. The fact is that they're only strong together. Cody begins building and Heather wants to stop him, but Courtney says that if they lose, they can just vote him off. Cody builds a giant head of Sierra. Alejandro holds up what looks like a whale's rib, and he says Owen's dense self would have said he'd love to eat it. He then realizes what he's meant to build. Harold says it's probably going to be building a Viking ship since they are in Sweden, and Lashana says he's a genius. Eva says he'll let her handle the grunt work. Everyone else makes sure the details rules are perfect. Chris tells him that Team Victory and Team Chris win part 1 and win rocks as a result. Heather says tough luck, a pointless reward. Harold says that she should know by now that there isn't a useless reward. Chris says that's right, Harold, the next part requires you to bring your ship to open water and sail north to find Chef. Alejandro sees the giant head Team Amazon built and asks Chris if he can move teams, and Chris says usually no, but he's in a good mood since he gets to keep his job, so sure. If you lose, then you just put yourself at risk of elimination anyway. Heather says wait, we could get a new host? And Chris says you wish, now move. Alejandro in confessional says he doesn't like Cody or anything, he just needs him to stay until merge, and this gives him a chance to get rid of Heather or Courtney if they lose. Alejandro says not to worry, just get onto the boat, he'll handle it. Heather says that he's on to him, and Alejandro says he's just helping out some friends. Heather in confessional says she's on to Alejandro. Under that facade is a man with a broken heart and a body chiseled of stone. Okay, where's that stupid tape? She needs to get rid of this confessional as soon as possible before Alejandro sees it. Chris then tells him that along with sailing to the next part, they can use the rock to put holes in the other person's ship. Eva quickly starts manning the cannons and Team Amazon is hit first and the boat begins to tip. Cody almost falling over the railing before Alejandro grabs his hand and pulls him back. Cody says thanks, if he fell in he was a goner. Alejandro in confessional says Cody was heavier than he thought. He will need to ice his arm for a week. He only did it because Cody is worth less dead to him than alive. Team Amazon initiate their counterattack, hitting Team Victory's mast to keep them in place, and Heather tells him good luck at elimination. Baki says he has an idea that's crazy enough to work as he gets into the cannon, telling them to fire it at Team Amazon. Lashana says, are you crazy? The precision you need is insane. Harold says to let him do it then. Everyone waits with bated breath as Harold fires him out and Baki goes straight through Team Amazon's boat, capsizing it as Alejandro quickly grabs planks of wood to make sure Cody doesn't sink to the bottom, as well as holding himself up, carrying them to shore while Team Victory make it to the end with the win. Heather says that they should have gone with the head instead. Before the vote, Heather asks if they can take a rain check to vote for Alejandro, and Courtney says definitely. Cody tells Alejandro thanks. Even if it was purely strategic, he still saved his life. He owes him. Alejandro in confessional says Cody owes him. It feels nice. I hold so much power in the game. Chris at elimination says that Alejandro probably should have stuck with Team Chris or had them all join his team instead, because personally, Team Chris was his favorite because it was named after him. Either way, time to read out the votes. 2 votes Al, 2 votes Heather. It's a tie. Heather says he better get ready to lose, and Alejandro says to dream on. Chris says hold your horses. Nobody is leaving tonight. This was a reward challenge. This makes Heather mad as she asks what the point of the challenge was then, and Chris says ratings. They asked for 26 episodes and we only have 18 contestants. I had to make do where I could. Heather says yeah, but aren't we on episode 17? Chris says oh shoot, yeah, she's right. He needs to make sure things end cleanly. Alejandro in confessional says no matter, he proved his loyalty to Cody and he knows Heather is gunning for him and not Cody. He's still where he needs to be. He can beat any of those girls in a tiebreaker. He just wants it to be Heather because she's so conniving, so villainous, so attractive, I mean attentive. Baki is shadowboxing like a madman and in confessional says this is it, final 9. They have to be merging at any time. I mean, this is the halfway point in terms of cast size. It would only make sense they merge now. Cody asks Alejandro why he wants to beat Baki so bad, and Alejandro says because of what Baki did. He gave a spot to a friend so they could be in the finale instead of him. Baki earned that right to be there, and DJ didn't. Cody says really, so it's the merit of it that you're mad at? Alejandro says of course, they robbed him and let it happen. I came here to show that those pesky things like friendship only get in the way of the game. Cody says that Baki may not win, but he never loses either. Alejandro asks what that means, and Cody says that Baki isn't here to win in the conventional sense. If he gets to the finale, cool, but I think he's just happy to be here at all. I mean, that's why he has 5 members left and you have a shell of a team. Alejandro just leaves and in confessional says that Cody thinks he's so smart. Once he thinks of a rebuttal, he'll make sure to give Cody a piece of his mind. Harold says he can't believe he was the last of the primary 4 to make it this far. Eva says primary 4, and Harold says yeah, me, Duncan, Tyler, and DJ. It was primary 3, but then you know, Duncan got trained too. Lindsay says yeah, but Tyler's coming back any day now. Chris comes over the intercom to say Lindsay is right, everyone to the front of the plane. Lashana says she is, and Chris responds she is. Everyone gathers and Chris congratulates them, saying that from this point on, teams are no longer a thing. Feel free to cry if you need to lament all the good times, causing everyone to laugh at the implication. Lindsay says excuse me Chuck, you said Tyler was coming back? Chris says that first off, it's Chris, and second, yes, he somehow managed to win the comeback challenge. Courtney says what, you picked Tyler and not Duncan? Chris Chris said that Duncan didn't want to come back. He didn't even compete in the challenge. Courtney in confessional says that can't be true. Duncan didn't want to return. Is he with Gwen? Tyler comes back, an angry look on his face as Lindsay runs to hug him, only for Tyler to blow past her and stare at Alejandro. Alejandro smiles and says, "Welcome back, Tyler." Tyler winds up a punch, but it's caught by Eva, who asks if he's stupid. He just got back. Chris says, "Seriously, Tyler, would one punch have been worth it?" Tyler says letting Alejandro feel the pain he caused would have been worth it enough. Lindsay asks Tyler what's wrong, and Tyler tells her to leave him alone. He can't calm down until he's gone. Do you understand what it's like to be lied to and played as a fool for 2 seasons in a row? Heather says she expected nothing better of him, honestly. Lindsay is saddened, but Baki tells her it'll be okay. Tyler will bounce back. Lindsay says she just thought he came back for her, not for Alejandro. Chris tells them that today's challenge doesn't take place in any particular location because all of you are multicultural. Instead, it'll be a fighting tournament in Japan. Tokugawa appears and says that's right, and first order of business is to state the rules. 1. No weapons are allowed to fight. 2. A match is won by KO, submission, or when an opponent quits. 3. No killing. Everything else is legal. Now, since there are 10 of you, 2 of you will have to sit out for a clean 8-person bracket. Lindsay says she'll sit out, and Heather says she will too. She doesn't want to die. The contestants land in Japan and are led into the arena where Tokugawa announces the bracket. Round 1 is Tyler versus Alejandro. Round 2 is Cody versus Lashana. Round 3 is Eva versus Courtney. And finally, Harold versus Baki. Harold says, "Wow, ain't that a kick in the pants?" Baki says he's just happy he got the bracket of his dreams here. Harold says, "Really? I'm a part of your dream roster?" Baki says, "Yeah, you, Cody, or Tyler would have sufficed." Harold says, "Of course." Chris adds on, "The finalists will get immunity, but only one will get to fly in first class to the next destination, so work for that victory." Round 1 starts and Tyler immediately runs at Alejandro blocking as Tyler throws punch after punch into Alejandro. "I trusted you! I thought you were my friend, how could you?" He continues punching over and over, and Alejandro just gives a smile in response as Tyler pants from exhaustion. "You done?" Tyler says not at all, winding up a punch as Alejandro delivers a punch to Tyler's solar plexus and he collapses. Alejandro turns to leave, but Tyler suddenly grabs his calf with both hands and does the vice grip on it, causing Alejandro to yell in anguish, and Tyler says that's a reminder of who you screwed over. Alejandro kicks Tyler in the head, making him pass out. Lindsay rushes in for Tyler, asking if he's okay, and Tyler says never better. His head kinda hurts though. As Alejandro walks back, Heather says, "Good work, you Alejandro blow." Alejandro says to just stop talking for 1 minute before limping to the seat to rest before his next match, using some of his shirt as a bandage to stop the bleeding. Heather in confessional says that Alejandro really didn't expect Tyler to land a hit. "Good on you, Tyler, you actually proved to be worth something." Baki tells Tyler it was a good effort, but he needs a little more than that, and Tyler says he knows. He thinks he's tapped out on what he can learn from Hanayama and the Yakuza. Lindsay asks Tyler if he's okay, and Tyler says not to worry, from now on it's just him and Lindsay. They both kiss, causing Courtney to retch in disgust. Lashana asks Cody if he really thinks he can win, and Cody says he thinks he can handle it. Lashana goes over and throws a punch at him before reeling in pain and saying, "Damn, why does your body feel like steel?" Cody says he just ate his vegetables. Lashana says, "Yeah, I don't really have anything that can beat a superhuman in direct combat, and so I forfeit." Harold tells Lashana it's okay, he's proud of her for getting into the ring at all. Lashana says that she never backs down from a challenge. Round 3 is Courtney versus Eva. Courtney tries to surprise Eva with a kick, but Eva grabs her leg and slams her onto the ground, knocking her out instantly as Eva looks at her with concern, only to be relieved when she hears her breathing again. Round 4 is Harold versus Baki. Baki rushes in and stands face to face with Harold, throwing a punch that Harold tries to grab before Baki reveals it was a feint, and Baki slams the real punch into Harold's temple, knocking him out. When Harold wakes up, Baki says he's impressed. He made him have to use a feint. His focus is incredible. Harold says thanks, but this isn't a performance to be proud of. He already knew he was falling out of rhythm. The semifinals begin with Alejandro versus Cody. Cody says that this is his first real fight. He's nervous. Baki says not to worry, he's got this, and if he doesn't, well, then he will fight Alejandro. Cody says he's glad that Baki doesn't seem nervous either way. Talk about being brought back to reality. Alejandro stares at Cody, and Cody says, "Hey, good job in round 1. You made it as well. Surprising, right? Let's stop wasting time and have a good match. I won't target that leg, don't worry." Alejandro was shocked and he became angered. In confessional, he said, "Cody is gonna go easy on me? Oh, he's dead." Alejandro rushes forward. He knows that Cody is really dense, so he needs to go all out. He uses all of his rage to hit Cody, and Cody in confessional says that Alejandro's punches hurt, like twice as powerful as Tyler's. He never would have expected that. Cody knows he can't handle this and he tries to capture Alejandro in a ball. However, Alejandro sees something he doesn't know of and jumps backwards. Cody misses the strike and stares up at Alejandro with an embarrassed smile as he says he guesses he should have trained more. Alejandro rushes in, intent to injure Cody for embarrassing him to the point where he needed to retreat in front of everyone, but something about him made him stop. It was like Cody just wasn't worth it. He stands up and tells Cody to forfeit. He's seen what Cody can do and he can't win. Cody says yeah, he's right, he's out. Cody in confessional says he really didn't stand a chance. If it was against Courtney or Heather, he would have wanted to destroy them, but he doesn't want to hurt Alejandro or his only real friend right now in that goal. Round 2 is Eva versus Baki. Baki tells Eva to show him what she's learned and Eva says she will. Baki rushes in and Eva parries a strike and delivers a strike into Baki's chest, and he goes back into the wood railing, saying that one really hurt. He cracks his shoulders and takes a stance, his aura emanating, but Eva asks if that's supposed to impress her. She jumps into the air trying to kick Baki, but Baki grabs her leg, only for Eva to have anticipated this and she kicks back with her other leg, causing Baki to let go of her leg and fall to a knee. Tyler says there's no way he can lose, not when I haven't fought him yet. Heather says yeah, you aren't gonna be the one that beats him, sadly. Baki in confessional says he couldn't believe it. He thought she was good, but not this good. Dopo really did make a monster. Baki stands back up and switches his stance to one that Harold instantly recognizes, but Baki then made one of his hands into the cord cut rather than keeping both defensive. He rushes in and goes to cut Eva's arm, Eva raising her arm to block it, and Baki easily disables it. He then jumps back as Eva rushes in, her hand laid flat so she could use it as a piercing attack rather than just a strike. Baki seems to have taken it, but Eva yells in pain as she goes flying back into the wood railing and passes out, Baki's hand being an open palm strike that redirected all the damage back into her. Harold realizes that this is the potential of his style if he truly masters it. Baki walks out of the arena and in confessional says that was truly something special. A stronger Dopo Orochi, if she had his experience, she'd truly be someone to watch out for. Chris says that Alejandro and Baki are safe tonight, but the first class spot is up in the air. Baki says whatever style he thinks he has, he will strip it away in an instant. If he doesn't fight like himself, he doesn't stand a chance. Alejandro jumps into the air before trying the same technique that won him in the episode 14 challenge, only for Baki to grab his leg and slam his chin on the wooden railing, and he holds his jaw in pain. Alejandro becomes angered and rushes in, his speed amplifying and his strikes becoming deadlier as he intends to pierce into Baki. Baki actually has to be defensive, not even having a chance to grab his arms to counter. He feels his back hit the wooden railing and he quickly jumps onto it as Alejandro pierces through the wood, and Baki kicks Alejandro in the chin before jumping off the wooden railing and kicking him to the ground. Baki says, you know, that was probably the most threatened I've been all night, and he's certain that Yujiro didn't teach him that. Alejandro in confessional says of course Yujiro didn't teach him that. This is the style he made just in case Yujiro's teachings failed. He has a plan, but he thinks this is the last chance, but Baki is turning out to be a threat as well. Alejandro stands up and does it once again, his speed revving up as Alejandro needs Baki to be too overwhelmed to counter. Once Baki's back hits a wooden railing, he throws a strike at his shoulder and Baki dodges, only for Alejandro to grab it and exclaim that he caught him, planning to pierce into Baki as Baki suddenly kicks Alejandro's wounded leg, dropping Alejandro to a knee as Baki tries to use the muscle ball that Oliva used. Although his size is smaller, he's able to crush Alejandro enough to make him pass out, and Baki wins immunity. Alejandro congratulates Baki when he wakes up. He's done it. Baki says to stop looking so sad, just grow a bit and then challenge him again, he'll be waiting. Plus, he has immunity, so he won't go home anyway. Alejandro asks why he's being so nice to him, and Baki says that Alejandro finally looked like a real fighter for the first time this season. Alejandro says with all due respect, he doesn't want to hear this after such a humiliating loss. Baki says that he hopes he grows past it for the better before leaving. Alejandro in confessional says that he lost. He'll never beat Baki, but he could still eliminate Baki, and that's still beating him at something. Chris asks Baki who he wants to bring to first class, and Baki says nobody. This shocks everyone, and Baki says he's been with the same 4 or 5 people for months now. He wants a day just to himself. Chris says he gets that. Alright, everyone else get ready for your elimination. Tyler asks Eva if she saw that vice grip, and Eva says yeah, I'll actually consider telling Dopo about you. Tyler says wait, you weren't even gonna tell him? Eva says yeah, but I'll consider it, if I remember. Tyler says oh man, still striking out even now. Lindsay says she wants to go wherever he goes from now on. She's tired of being without him, and this entire thing has made her realize realize how much she really does want to be with him. Tyler is at a loss for words as he realizes how selfish he was in his ambition, and he says fine, she'll be there to see him grow stronger. Heather tells Courtney that Eva has got to go, and Courtney says oh 100%, she's way too strong to keep far into the merge. Chris welcomes them to elimination. You all survived your first day of merge. Well, most of you survived your first day of merge. After today, only 9 will have survived. The person who's going home is Heather. Heather says sorry, she's going nowhere, taking out the disc and saying that she has some proof people fought in the hangar on this disc. Chris says, ooh, should have brought it up to them immediately, but this is far more interesting. He plays it and it shows Harold, Tyler, Duncan, and DJ fighting an unknown assailant as Alejandro has been edited out of the footage, so they're just getting beat by some mystery assailant. Heather says, no way, she should have actually watched the footage. Chris says, you're right, Harold and Tyler did break the rules. Tyler says, wait, but he already was eliminated once, isn't that enough? Chris says, sadly not, this is a new crime. Harold says, oh man, he should have known that this thread would have been tied eventually. Lashana tells Heather she's the worst, weaponizing the footage like that. Heather can't say anything, still shocked that Alejandro isn't in the footage, and Heather says it was Alejandro that fought them. Chris asks if she has any proof, and Heather says the wounds he had that Correja fixed. Chris says that all their testimonies said they got wounded by the plane's turbulence. Tyler is about to speak, but Baki places a hand on his shoulder and Tyler decides not to. Harold, on the other hand, goes for it, and Chris says that trying to drag someone else down is pretty petty behavior, Harold, especially someone that just so happened to get injured. Eva says she can hear the snarkiness on his voice. He knows Alejandro was in there. Chris says who's to say? All he knows is that there's no actual proof Alejandro fought anyone. The testimonies at the time all were the same until Harold suddenly changed it, and Alejandro brings in tons of good ratings. So with that being said, Harold, time for you to go, and Tyler, time for you to go again. Lindsay asks Tyler if she should quit with him, and Tyler says no, he'll be waiting for her. He won't leave without her, just trust him. Harold tells Lashana that he's sorry, and Lashana says she should be the one that's apologizing. If she didn't fall for that snake, then this would have never happened. She hugs Harold and gives him a final goodbye kiss, as Harold says he may not have won, but he's leaving with so much. Chris pushes him and Tyler out of the plane as Harold finishes his sentence by shouting more. Heather sits in utter defeat as Alejandro says that's not a good look for her. Where's the fight? Heather says, what's the point? You got over me. I tried to outsmart you, but you were too much for me. Alejandro says that's true, but he's feeling merciful. How about an alliance with me and Cody without him knowing? Heather would ask if that has the potential to make Cody mad if he finds out. Alejandro says yeah, but what he doesn't know won't hurt him. Heather in confessional says the sad girl routine worked like a charm. Now Alejandro gave her a lifeline. He's so in love with her. Lashana asks Lindsay if she's doing good, and Lindsay says she misses Tyler. Again, Lashana says she does too, hugging Lindsay. Courtney tells Eva that was a nice grab, and Eva says thanks, I thought I killed you honestly. Courtney says please, she's tougher than she looks. Listen, she doesn't want to be in an alliance with Heather anymore. How would you feel about helping a sister out? Eva says fine with her, she needs to get rid of Baki at some point as well. She loves the guy, but she can't allow him to stay after displaying he was the apex predator. Baki is asleep in first class, being more relaxed than he's been all season. Episode 20 begins with Lashana saying it's actually kind of nice that Baki's not here. It always felt like he was breathing down our necks. Alejandro says that he doesn't think they'll have to worry about that. Baki got everything he wanted out of that last challenge. If he was still wanting a challenge, we'd feel it down here. Heather says it's about time, she didn't know he had an off switch. Eva says every martial artist has moments where they stop thinking about it. It's rather nice once in a while. Courtney says yeah, that's how hobbies work. Cody says he'd call it a lifestyle personally, and Heather tells him to pipe down, he hardly qualifies. Cody says yeah, he knows. Alejandro tells him not to let them denounce why he fights. Cody says wow, thanks Alejandro. Lashana tells Cody that he's playing him, and Cody says yeah, maybe, but it's nice to be praised. Baki is doing his morning stretches, Chris coming over the intercom and telling them that it's time for their next challenge. The contestants are lined up in the front of the Great Wall of China, where Baki asks if they're in China right now, and Heather says obviously, you don't see this in Canada, do you? Baki says fair point, he's taking a rain check on the challenge, he needs to talk to someone here. Chris says wait, really? At least put this camera on so we can get the footage. Baki says honestly he doubt it'll be all that interesting. In confessional, Baki says that he promised Harold he'd go to the Kaios to ask about getting that old guy to train Harold. He just wishes Harold lasted one more episode so he could have brought him instead. Chris says today's challenge will have every competitor minus Baki racing up the Great Wall of China. Each contestant gets a different mode of transportation, with Alejandro offering the rickshaw to Heather and gives Cody the donkey, saying it won't buckle under his weight. Alejandro and Eva both decide to do it with no advantage at all, while Lindsay gets the bicycle. Lashana gets the skateboard and Courtney gets traditional Chinese wooden sandals, which she can barely function in. Lashana and Lindsay make it first, with Eva and Alejandro both making it at the same time, and Alejandro in confessional says he underestimated Eva. She's much more capable than he expected. Heather makes it as well as Cody, with Courtney being the only one that doesn't. In China, Baki beats the guards to the temple and Retsu comes out, asking who dares to disturb. Oh, it's you. Baki asks if he can speak to the old man, and Retsu asks why. DJ comes over and says, "Is that Baki? Invite him in." Retsu says this is not a vacation spot, this is a temple of knowledge and martial arts. Baki says fine, then give me a test to make sure I'm worthy of coming inside. Retsu says fine, come with me. He's led to a giant tube of water. Retsu says this is a testing site for all Kaio. He needs to punch in and cause the water to overflow on the other side. Baki asks if he can see Retsu do it first, and he refuses, but says Kaio DJ can do it if he wishes. DJ goes up and punches it, the water flowing to the other side with ease. Baki does it next, and at first it doesn't succeed, but soon it explodes over to the other side and the room is filled with water from the basin. Retsu says even if he wanted to see Grandmaster Kaku, you can't, he's not here. A voice says who's not here as Grandmaster Kaku shows up. Baki rushes over and says it's nice to see him, he's looking as spry as ever. Kaku looks at the basin and says that he has potential. He was wondering who did it, but it turns out to be the son of the Yogurt. What do you want? Baki says he only wants for him to give someone a chance at training. Kaku says no way, the new generation are all too soft. Baki says but wait, he got DJ for him, that should be proof that the new generation isn't as weak. And Kaku says he has talent, but he doesn't have the spirit. He can win, but he doesn't want to learn techniques, he wants to learn how to cook. Baki says then give this one a chance, he has no limit, he just needs to see the potential to believe in it. He becomes what the potential shows. Retsu says no, you can't mean, and Baki says Herald. Kaku thinks for a moment before sighing and saying out of respect for his family he will give it a chance, but he will have to be a Kaio first. Retsu says he got his answer and got more mercy than most, now leave. Baki says that won't work. Retsu says the insolence and audacity, but Kaku asks why not. Baki says that Herald isn't strong, that's why he trained with Shibukawa to begin with. He's grown almost no muscle from the year of training he's had. Kaku says so that's what this is, you want him to learn my star technique. You are aware this could be life-threatening to Herald, right? There's only about a 1 in a million chance he can reach this level, and if he can't, he dies trying. Are you willing to wager his life on that chance? Baki says he isn't the one that's deciding, Herald is, and this is what he wants. He asked him to do it, so this is what he'll do. Kaku says that it's a deal then. Retsu says that there's no way he can be serious, and Kaku tells him to relax. Worst comes to worst, he is just a thorn in my side for a moment. Best case scenario, he ends up being my new son. He laughs and Baki leaves, saying he's just as weird as his dad. Mama DJ hands Baki a cookie on the way out. Baki thanks her and rushes back to the challenge. Chris says that the next part of the challenge is to eat local dishes, such as deep-fried grasshoppers. Courtney finally makes it in, and Eva asks if she wants to help her win immunity, and Courtney says fine, but you're bringing me to first class. The first delicacy is donkey meat. Cody realizes that it may be the donkey he just rode in on, and becomes saddened, admittedly growing attached to it. Cody in confessional says that Ace didn't deserve that. Ace was just the little guy like me. He helped me and now we're eating him. The next meal is a bunch of live mealworms, local delicacy. Lindsay uses her imagination, saying she loves spaghetti as she finishes it, and Heather finishes it last, looking at Courtney with a suspicious look as Courtney is chewing on something. Starfish on a skewer is next, and Lindsay finishes it first. Lashana can't finish it. Lashana says no way you're having a snack right now, as she looks at Courtney. The next one, Chris says he actually doesn't know what this bowl of slop is, but it's not right. Heather stands up and says wait a minute, she's noticed something. She thinks someone is slipping food to Courtney, and the only one who she hasn't seen eating a meal is Eva. Courtney says that's not true. Courtney in confessional says that idiot, does she not think I'll bring her into an alliance with Eva? She's so infuriating, I wish I could just cut her out. Chris says listen, he has to wrap this up. Whoever wins gets invincibility and can take whoever they want up to first class. Heather says fine, just move Eva to the end so she can't be close to Courtney. Chris says fine, if that'll make her shut up. Alejandro and Eva both try desperately to finish the food, but both fall to Lindsay, who eats the entire thing and says she just imagined it was pizza. Chris says she's sick. Who do you want at first class? Lindsay says she wants to take LaFonda. Lashana says yes, sisters unite. Chris says right, and where is Baki? If he isn't here by elimination, we're leaving without him. Baki arrives panting and he asks what he missed, and Heather says Lindsay's victory. Baki says whoa, really good on you, Lindsay. You beat Alejandro and Eva. Alejandro in confessional says well that's not, I fight before cutting to Eva, who is saying the same things, not having any words to rebuke their losses. Heather tells Alejandro she was surprised he could eat so much gross stuff. She thought he was just a model. Alejandro says he trained with Yujiro. Whatever he was squeamish about quickly went away after the first week and no food, but that bowl was something else. Whoever made it should be put in prison. Heather says, yeah, Chris. Chris comes over the intercom to say it's time for elimination. Chris welcomes everyone to elimination. Lindsay somehow won. I'm down $10, but the good news is that Chef and Tokugawa are as well, so it just goes to the winner's pot. Lashana says not to tell her that they are betting on who wins the challenges, and Chris says okay, he won't. Either way, we counted the votes probably 5 times over, and it came up one way. Baki, you're out. Baki says that's how it goes, he got his win anyway. Alejandro stands up and goes to him and says that he beat him, and Baki says beat him at what? This stuns Alejandro. Was this not even a game for Baki? Did he not realize that this was the point of the competition? Is he even here for any purpose besides fighting? The next thought makes him sit back down. If Baki never truly saw this competition as a competition, then did he truly beat Baki in a way that mattered? Everyone else is happy about getting rid of the biggest apex predator, but Alejandro feels alone as the new apex predator on the plane. Cody asks if he's alright, and Alejandro says he just thought Baki would have been more mad to be eliminated. Cody asks if he even knows Baki. If he cared about winning, he wouldn't have left the challenge to begin with. He doesn't care whether he stays or goes, he just runs on his own time. Courtney tells Heather to listen up. Eva is her ally, so don't try that crap again. Heather says, oh, they're teaming up with the strong now? Eva is their biggest threat besides Alejandro. Courtney says, okay, let's vote off Alejandro, and Heather says no, she doesn't feel like it. Courtney in confessional says it was bad enough that Heather had a crush on Alejandro she didn't want to admit, but now she's directly teaming with him. She felt bad at first for getting Eva, but if she's teaming with Alejandro, then it's game on. Lashana says she can already tell this is going to be bittersweet. Baki was kinda a tension breaker. He never really cared about the drama, he just always did his thing. From this point on, it's all drama. Lindsay says it's alright, Tyler will take care of him. Lashana says yeah, that wasn't really my problem. Episode 21 begins with Eva telling Alejandro they should just team up, and Alejandro says sorry, he has an alliance already, and Eva says yeah, you're not special, she does too. Alejandro says touche, alright, let's get through this together. How about Courtney first? Eva says how about Heather, the two realizing that they don't trust each other. Alejandro in confessional says disposing at Heather, his brain says obviously he can always keep Cody, but his pesky heart is making him want to keep Heather. He doesn't know which to believe anymore. Lashana tells Lindsay that they need to get a third ally. Lindsay asks how about Eva? Lashana says how about someone we can reasonably beat? Lindsay says Cody? Lashana says sounds good. Lashana goes to Cody and tells him that her and Lindsay have a proposition for him. Cody says if they go into an alliance he has one rule, Heather first. Lashana says how about Eva and an IOU? Cody says no, sorry, I don't loan out favors anymore, not when you can easily just vote me out next. Lashana asks what other options he has, and Cody says he doesn't need to disclose that now, does he? Lashana says whatever, you'll get one chance to change your mind since I actually like you. Cordy in confessional says that right now her alliance with Eva seems like it's shaky at best. She needs to ditch her soon, but she also needs to make sure Heather leaves. Things are getting so complicated. She could have kept someone useless like Gwen around since she knows she wouldn't have been able to think beyond a 2-step plan. The plane lands and Chris welcomes them to the Serengeti Plains. Today's challenge starts with contestants running to a pile of plums and returning with as many as they can carry while avoiding the soccer balls kicked by the other contestants. Cody in confessional says yes, let's go, finally a challenge for me. Cody says he'll go first. He runs in and despite everyone kicking balls at him, the balls just bounce off and he uses his shirt to carry more plums before running back, being incredibly proud of his performance. Alejandro tells him good job and Cody gives him a high five, all the plums dropping to the ground and needing to be picked up again. Eva goes next, but as the balls hit her, she becomes enraged and goes to attack Alejandro, Chris telling Eva that she's done. Eva says damn it, and then confessional says she hates getting touched. Punches at least have some weight to them. Lindsay goes next and doesn't really have the durability to remain standing for long, but she luckily gets one plum. Heather has a similar experience, but she manages to get a small handful. Courtney uses her agility to dodge, but she still takes some hits and ends up with a small pile. Lashana goes next and tanks it better than most, with her gaining the second amount with a full armful. Alejandro uses his impressive jump to long jump all the way to the plums before attempting to do the same back, only for Eva to catch him, kicking a ball right into his cheek, causing him to drop them and fall to the finish with nothing. Alejandro in confessional says that he hasn't felt a blow like that since Baki. Doesn't help that he didn't see it coming so he couldn't brace for impact. Eva is really proving to be a thorn in my side. Chris tells him that they will now use their clubs to smash through gourds, and whoever does so first will win an advantage for part 3 of the challenge. Alejandro asks what he is supposed to do, and Chris says, good question, figure it out, maybe he can imagine himself holding a plum. Lindsay says that this is tough. Heather manages to shoot it down first, Cody being second, Courtney third, Lashana fourth, Lindsay fifth, Eva and Alejandro being last. Chris gives Heather 6 tranquilizer balls, Cody gets 3, Courtney 2, Lashana and Lindsay 1, and Eva and Alejandro also get 1 but no slingshot. Alejandro says that at least he has a ball this time. Chris says that they'll be trying to catch a lion. Eva in confessional says this is great. Dopo Orochi got into the map by killing a tiger, she'll get on the map by killing a lion. Chris says that before anything, Eva, Alejandro, don't kill the lion, we don't need the hate mail. Eva says fine, knocking on a conscious is just as good. Chris says that their job is to capture this lion, the one who does so will win immunity and be allowed to take someone to first class with them. The lion is let out and it runs away. Heather says so much for King of the Jungle, it's running from us. Chris says, yeah, it's trained to do that. It wouldn't be a challenge if it just mauled Cody to death and it gave you a free window to shoot it. Cody asks why he was the one getting mauled. During the challenge, Alejandro tells Heather that they should think about eliminating Eva tonight. She's the only one who matches her in power. Heather says that's exactly why she needs to be kept. She's the only thing keeping you in check. Alejandro says, fair point. Courtney or Lashana is fair then. Heather says, yeah, Courtney is strategic, but Lashana is just pure pettiness. Heather sees the lion and tries to grab a ball, but they're missing, and Heather quickly runs from the lion as it chases after her, Eva jumping in and delivering a chop onto its head, knocking it out. Lindsay asks if he thinks he can hit it, and Cody says he doesn't know, it's a tough shot. He sees the bulge from the balls in Alejandro's pocket and focuses on them, shooting a tranquilizer ball at it, causing a massive explosion of tranquilizer smoke that knocks the group out. Cody goes in closer to drag the lion away, but Courtney shoots Cody to make him pass out. Lindsay wonders what to do. She can't drag the lion by herself. She can't even hit that shot. She thinks about what Tyler would do and she runs in with her tranquilizer ball, and Courtney tells her to leave. This is her win. Lindsay hits Courtney with the tranquilizer ball and the both of them fall asleep. Lashana says this challenge is so stupid. Finding a lion in the Serengeti plains, she has a better chance at finding a needle in a haystack. She moves some foliage and says, huh, she found the needle, seeing the group of passed out competitors and a lion. The next thing the others hear is that the challenge is over. Time to go to elimination. Heather groggily asks who won and Chris says, Lashana. Oh yeah, Lindsay, shape up. You're going to first class tonight. Lindsay says, hooray, before falling back asleep. Alejandro says to let him think about the votes. Courtney is probably gunning for Eva or Heather. Lashana and Lindsay are probably gunning for me. Cody just wants Heather gone. That means I have only one option. Lashana tells Lindsay, you know what? I'm not too scared of Eva anymore. I mean, that's twice in a row we've beaten them. Lindsay says, yeah, but what about when another physical-based challenge comes? And Lashana says, true, but that's why they're a team. Lindsay says, yeah. Courtney is probably super pissed. She robbed her of the win. Courtney tells Eva that they need to vote off Lindsay. She's the reason that they aren't in first class right now. Eva says she sees the point. She just isn't really thinking this is the best strategic move. Courtney says she'll think about changing it, but she's so riled up right now she can't think clearly. And whoever she decides to vote for, Eva better have her back. Chris says that it was a great challenge performance. One of them is still going home. Lindsay, Eva, Heather, one of you will be saying goodbye. Lindsay asks why her, and Courtney asks if she remembers her, and Lindsay says, Cody was it? Cody says, nope, right here. Chris tells her to shut it, she's safe anyway. That means it's between the physically impressive Eva versus the socially dangerous Heather. Unfortunately, Heather, you're out. Heather says, really? You'll keep Eva over me? Lashana says, it's just the game, Heather. She should know that by now. Cody in confessional says, that's one down. You see that, Sierra? He got rid of one of the traitors here. Now it's just time for Courtney to leave. Alejandro tells Heather to call him after the season is over, and Heather says he wishes, but if he wins, she might consider it. Lindsay says, wow, you totally like her, and Alejandro says, no, I don't. In confessional, Alejandro says it was sad to vote her off, but he always was aware of her scheme. She let her guard down at the worst time, unfortunately, and she shouldn't have allied with me to begin with. Cody tells Alejandro that all they need now is Courtney, but Alejandro says, I did something for you, now we vote off Eva. Cody says, oh fine, but then Courtney. Alejandro says, and then Courtney. Episode 22 begins with Courtney telling Eva that now that Heather is gone, they should get rid of Lindsay or Lashana. Eva asks about Alejandro, and Courtney asks what about Alejandro. Eva says, come on, he's the strongest physical threat. Courtney says, that's rich to her, you're the biggest physical threat to me. Eva asks if this is really what she wants to do right now, and Courtney says, yeah, she does. Eva says, fine, she'll go to Lashana and Lindsay. Courtney says, really, you think they aren't gunning for you too? Eva says, sure, but at least they aren't blind to how much of a threat Alejandro is. Courtney says she isn't, she just doesn't want that alliance to grow more powerful by surviving another vote. Eva says, oh no, that's not the reason. She knows too well that Courtney Courtney is just the personification of an overgrown baby. Courtney says that's not true, and Eva says to admit it. Without Duncan, you just are an angry girl looking for someone to blame. Courtney says she's one to talk. She remembers who she was before this fake martial arts nonsense. Courtney goes to Lashana and tells him that the non-superpowered people need to stick together and get rid of the freaks. Lashana in confessional says that she knows Courtney's working an angle, but she likes what Courtney is saying right now. Oh yeah, who do you think we should get rid of first? Courtney says, how about Eva or Alejandro? Get this, Eva wants to get rid of one of you because she's afraid of your alliance's power, but she thinks with all three of them together, they could be stronger than any of them individually. Lashana in confessional says that was what she expected from Courtney, all political, which means there's probably a catch somewhere, either in why she made the deal, what Eva is doing, or who she's voting for. She just needs to figure out which one is which. Lashana asks if that's all she wanted, and Courtney says yeah, Lashana telling her to get out of first class then. Lindsay asks if they're really gonna work with her, and Lashana says for now, at least until Final 3 or she figures out a real game. Alejandro asks what's the purpose of making these paper planes, and Cody says it's fun to watch them fly. He won his school's airplane contest for 10 years straight. Alejandro asks what about the 11th, and Cody says he'd rather not talk about it. They started allowing drones. Alejandro says he feels like that breaks the point, and Cody says he said the same thing, but nobody listens to him. Alejandro says that's because he has no backbone. Think about someone like Yujiro. He's strong, commands respect, and inherently pragmatic. Cody says that he reminds him of his mentor, Oliva. He will do anything for his wife. He inspired me to be a better man. Alejandro says that he can't rely on anyone to keep him safe, only himself. Yujiro taught him that. Cody says that's a lonely life to live, and Alejandro asks why Cody is fighting him on this. Does he have to instill his own version of Yujiro training into him to make him realize? Cody says that if he does that, then he'll have to install an Oliva version of training into Alejandro. Alejandro in confessional says that Cody wants to train him. He'd be more offended if Cody was anything more to me than an oversized golden retriever. Chris comes over the intercom to tell him that the next challenge is going to begin. They are now on Easter Island. Today's challenge requires contestants to get 3 eggs of their specifically colored egg based on the color of their feathered headset that they were given, and then go through the underground cave to reach the highest part of a mountain. Alejandro realizes that the stone heads built to resemble previous contestants are key to getting the eggs. He climbs onto Katie's head and finds nothing in her head, saying of course she's useless. Her use was being eliminated for him. Eva looks in Baki's head and finds an egg of her color. Courtney finds one in Gwen's head and she tells the head she still doesn't forgive her before seeing the Duncan head and being reminded of what she can't shake. In confessional, she says that she just hopes Duncan and Gwen aren't talking. She looks in Duncan's head and finds an egg belonging to Lashana and she reluctantly gives it to her. Lashana in confessional asks if Courtney hit her head somewhere. Not even in her wildest dreams would she have thought that Courtney would put the Alliance's survival over her own. Maybe she is serious about this alliance. Cody goes to Sierra's head and asks if she has anything for him, looking inside and find an egg. Alejandro tells Cody here he found an egg. Cody reaches out but Alejandro suddenly destroys it. Cody asks why he'd do that and Alejandro says not to let his eggs be taken by anyone. Cody reaches into Owen's head, finding one of Alejandro's and destroying it. Alejandro says that's not cool and Cody says survival of the fittest, Al. Lindsay gives Lashana her second egg, kissing Tyler's face on the way out. Both have 2 eggs each, with Eva only having 1, Alejandro having 1, Cody having 1, and Courtney finding her second one when she looks into Harold's head, saying nice, Chris. Alejandro grabs one from Seedy and then shudders as she thinks about her. Alejandro in confessional says he almost forgot about that behemoth that puts sumo wrestlers to shame. Lashana looks under Harold's glasses and there's 1 egg each, one for Lashana and one for Lindsay. Courtney asks if they found theirs and they say they did. Courtney tells them to go, she'll be behind them soon, she's sure. Lashana says no, they're a team. Going to Izzy and finding the egg as all 3 run to the next part. Cody tells Alejandro good job, now he won't be able to win. Alejandro says to shut up, Chris didn't say that was the only part of the challenge, time to go to part 2. Cody asks if he's banking on a chance and Alejandro says he doesn't really have a choice. While in the cave, one of Courtney's eggs hatches and Courtney says ew, its fur makes it look the same as Cody. Lindsay says they should call it Cody Jr. and Courtney says hell no, this is Duncan Jr. She looks at it before saying yeah, never mind, he has the same puppy eyes that Cody has. It nests on Courtney's head and Courtney just decides to go anyway. The order of arrival to the second part is Lashana, Lindsay, Courtney, Alejandro, Cody, and finally Eva, who stay behind to find all of her eggs. The second part of the challenge is to climb up a rock pillar and return the eggs to the nest on top. The female condor is also up there, it being twice the size of the male one. There is one thing that can stop the condor: music. The entire group goes quiet as Lashana says really, we're singing? Courtney says if that's how it has to be. Lindsay goes first and though she starts fine, she runs out of things to rhyme, so asks Lashana what she should rhyme orange with before the condor pushes her off the pillar, and Chris says ooh, that one's gonna leave a mark. Lashana is next and though she does better, she ultimately goes down as well. Courtney then goes and utilizing the power of her cannon auto-tune powers and Cody Jr. going with its mother, Courtney is able to put her eggs into the condor
door nest and win the challenge. Chris tells her she can choose someone to go to first class with her, and she chooses to bring Lashana. Eva realizes what's going on immediately. After the challenge, Eva goes to Lashana and tells her that Courtney is playing her, but Lashana says maybe she is, but she's been nicer to her than Eva has been as of recently. Eva says that Courtney is playing her and she will have nobody but herself to blame when she gets burned. She's voting Alejandro. She expects them to do the same. Alejandro in confessional says so day one of training Cody didn't work out, but it's not hopeless yet. Lashana can't see it, but Courtney is playing them. She has to vote for Alejandro. Lindsay says she's down for that, they're a team after all. Eva says they are, and Lindsay says yeah, team victory. And Lashana wins the challenge for them, so now she has to vote for one of Team Amazon. Eva in confessional says she thinks Lindsay doesn't totally grasp the concept of merge. Chris welcomes them to an elimination. All 6 of you have suffered through 21 episodes, but now one of you will be relieved of your duty, and it's between the 2 strongest people here, Alejandro and Eva. Alejandro feels the tension build as for the first time he wonders if his plan didn't work. Eva in confessional hopes that they didn't vote her out, so close to the finale. Don't let her also lose to Alejandro of all people. Chris says the person who's going home is Eva. Eva says nice, real nice. She begins to walk to the plane, but Lindsay tells her to wait, hugging her and telling her that she voted for Alfonso. Eva says she knows she did. She turns and tells them to deal with the rat jumping off the plane. Cody in confessional says he hates to see Eva go, but the facts are facts. He needs Alejandro so Courtney can be voted off, and he can't really beat Eva in a direct fight anyway, so this is his best option. Alejandro in confessional says he can't believe he fulfilled his goal of getting rid of every single combat trained person here. Baki's influence in these games has now been reduced to nothing, and I've officially won. It just feels like he may be forgetting something. Cody says that was great, now they can get rid of Courtney. Alejandro in confessional says he forgot about Cody. He can't train Cody and also eliminate him, and for some reason the thought of eliminating him makes him slightly sad. Even with Heather, he was just disappointed that she left, but he thinks he pities Cody. Lindsay sits alone in economy, Alejandro smiling as he sees another person primed for an alliance. Episode 23 begins with Courtney in confessional saying to look, she's more than aware that Lashana and Lindsay are her only 2 allies, but what about Final 4 or Final 3? They'll 100% choose each other over her. She needs to do something. Courtney goes to Lindsay early in the morning while Lashana is still asleep, and Lindsay asks if Courtney wants to play a game with her. She's counting how many dents are in the plane's wall. Courtney says she's good. She actually wants to talk. Alejandro in confessional says that Courtney already is in an alliance with Lashana and Lindsay judging by vote patterns. Otherwise, she would have left by now. So all this means is that it's the season tradition of Courtney ruining her own game. Courtney says to listen, Lashana is planning on betraying her. Lindsay says what? LaFonda would do that? Courtney says yeah, she told me she's planning on voting you out tonight. Lindsay would ask why she'd do that, and Courtney would say that she didn't really ask her why. Lindsay says that she just asked because that doesn't sound like her. Maybe she should ask her. Courtney says no, sorry, she must have misheard her. Lindsay knows she's always on her side, right? Lindsay says yeah, of course. In confessional, Lindsay says that Heather said the same thing. She doesn't want to accuse her of anything, but she doesn't think Cortland was telling the truth. Lashana asks where Courtney went, and Courtney in confessional says that her plan with Lindsay went south, but Lashana has always had a short fuse. Courtney says that she doesn't want to alarm her, but she thinks that Lindsay is planning on voting her out next. She couldn't understand her, Lindsay is stupid after all, but she got the vibe that she was planning on voting you out next. Lashana says really? Because she knows one thing about Lindsay. She may be stupid, but she doesn't stab people in the back. She thinks she knows what's going on. You realize that we would only take you to the final 3, a placement way too high for a snake like you, and you tried to form a team of 2. Well, Courtney, congrats, because you messed up, because I know Lindsay wouldn't do that. Courtney tells her that she's just looking out for her, and Lashana says she's looking out for herself. She only looks out for herself. Lashana walks out of first class, and Courtney in confessional says that could have went better. Now she has to win every challenge to survive since she doesn't really want to team up with Alejandro knowing what happened to Heather. Cody tells Alejandro that this is great. He was listening in. Courtney absolutely is killing her own game. Alejandro says that this is good news, and in confessional says that Courtney sabotaging her own game is tragic, but he can gain from this. The contestants are taken to Drumheller, Alberta, which is famous for the discovery of tons of bones and fossils. With this in mind, their first challenge is to design a dinosaur with any type of bone they find along with anything that may help on the plane. The hangar has been opened for this one, but if he even sees one punch being thrown, he'll throw them out. Alejandro whispers to Courtney to talk in the hangar. Courtney says she'll pass on any alliance, she'll just win. Alejandro says to suit herself. Lashana asks Lindsay if they're cool, and Lindsay says of course they are. Lashana saying cool. Lindsay grabs glitter glue, stickers, and paint, which Courtney asks if she's making a dinosaur or creating a third-grade art piece. Lindsay says that maybe the stickers were too much, and Lashana tells her to keep the stickers. Courtney is just scared she'll lose if she doesn't get them. As the contestants build their dinosaurs, Alejandro tells Courtney it looks like she could really use a hand. Courtney says that this is hard work, but she doesn't want to make a deal with the devil. Alejandro says that Courtney doesn't realize that he's fine no matter what. He's doing this to help her. Courtney says, yeah, right, you're like a worse Heather. Alejandro thanks her and tells her that if it makes her feel better, he won't vote her out tonight. Courtney says, wow, so generous. Cody drags a bone and sees Alejandro talking to Courtney and asks in confessional if he's seeing this right. Alejandro is making a deal with her? He'd think that she's playing him, but he knows better. Alejandro really was just using him. No, he's still fine. They'll still vote off Courtney tonight. Chris tells them that it's time to show off their dinosaurs. Alejandro is first and he shows off his Allosaurus, an actual dinosaur. Chris says that it's going to be tough to beat that, and Courtney says please. She built the only dinosaur that Chris would ever consider his favorite, the Triceratops. Chris says he loves it. Codester, what have you got? Cody says he made the Codiodon. Cody says that he found all these big ones and thought they were cool. Alejandro says it's coprolite. Cody says that he'll call it the Codiolite, huh? Alejandro says that coprolite is also a term made from putting together copro, which means dung, and light, which means stone. Cody says, does that mean that it's ew? Chris tells Lindsay to please save them from Cody's ineptitude, and Lashana says that her and Lindsay built one together. They built the Alliance-osaurus. Lindsay says, you see, me and Lashana were perfectly fine as BFFs, but Courtney tried to split us apart, shown by these bones here in the middle making the heart broken. Chris says that's pretty good, but there's a pretty shocking twist. He won't be rating them. You all will. Courtney is strapped to a lie detector test, and she says that she thinks this goes against a lot of reality TV laws. Chris tells them that they will vote on their favorite dino. You might want to tell the truth. Just saying. Courtney tries to say that she loved Cody's, but she's zapped and Chris says, yeah, might want to tell the truth. Courtney says she picks Alejandro's. Alejandro is next and he says he liked Cody's before being zapped and saying fine, he liked the genuine emotion shown by Lindsay and Lashana's dinosaur. Chris says good enough. Lindsay says she likes the Triceratops. She'd totally buy one if it was in stores. Chris says he needs to write that one down for later. Cody is next and he says that he really liked Lashana and Lindsay's. It meant something special, you know? Chris says that Lindsay and Lashana win and win this post digger. The second part of the challenge starts with Chris saying that the interns were supposed to bury these barrels full of snakes, crickets, and other disgusting things, but instead they buried the reserve fuel. As a result, they will now have to find those barrels. Since Courtney got one vote, they get a prospector kit. Cody, you'll get a beach bucket and a kid's shovel. And finally, Alejandro, since you decided to not make anything original, you will get nothing. Alejandro says that Chris never said to make something original, and Chris says he should know already that he makes the rules up as he goes. Lashana says that Baki was right about Alejandro, all he knows is how to copy. Alejandro in confessional says that Lashana went too far. One more thing, since this would be boring if it didn't have a twist, we'll be throwing boulders at you. Lashana finds a barrel and says that victory is theirs. A rock suddenly is hurled and it seals the hole back up as Lashana is angry as she can hear the distant laughing of Chris. Courtney finds a barrel and says yes, finally, luck is on her and Duncan's side again. The universe wants her to win. Alejandro sees a barrel and goes to grab it, but is surprised as he sees a rock and he dives in the hole, being trapped in the hole as the rock lands on top of it. Cody is rolling his barrel and hears the sound of someone yelling and asks if he's okay. Alejandro says obviously not, he's trapped. Cody says to calm down, he's okay, the rock isn't anything special. He sees the pickaxe Courtney had that she dropped when she got the barrel and uses it to pry the rock off, and Alejandro says thank you before seeing the barrel of oil. Cody says not to even try it, Al, he's onto him. Alejandro asks what he means and Cody says he saw him talking to Courtney. Alejandro says he's getting the wrong idea, but Cody says no, from this point on they're done. Alejandro says he really is stupid, grabbing the barrel and running past as Cody chases after him. On the way they pass Lashana and Lindsay, and Lashana asks if they can have the pickaxe and Cody throws it to them. They make it but realize the barrel is already there and Cody says but that means, and Courtney says yeah, she won immunity, she's safe tonight, tough luck, looks like you failed. Cody says that this was supposed to be his win, but he really did fail. He hangs his head in disappointment as he boards the plane. Alejandro in confessional says that was sad. He feels kind of bad for him. Alejandro goes to Cody and tells him that he was talking to Courtney, but it was to help him. He wanted to use her to win the challenge so Courtney would have been vulnerable. Cody says really? And Alejandro says of course. Now how about we stay teamed up and you and I can make it to the end. end. Cody says fine. In confessional, Cody says he knows Alejandro is playing him, but what does it matter anymore? He can't win immunity by himself, and Alejandro is the only one who could. He trained for so long and yet he can't protect Sierra at all. Chris tells Lashana and Lindsay to hurry up. Courtney won. Lashana says Courtney won. Ooh, that girl needs to go. Chris welcomes them to elimination. He was feeling nostalgic, so he started a campfire and he has some marshmallows for them. Courtney gets the first one, then Cody. It bounces off Cody's head as Cody is too depressed to try and grab it. Chris says, alright, don't grab it. It's not like this is a special occasion or anything. Lindsay, congrats on making it this far. Please catch it, unlike Cody. And finally, between Lashana and Alejandro, Lashana says, come on, Chris, hand her the marshmallow. Chris says the last marshmallow goes to Alejandro. Lashana says, wow, she didn't think Courtney could get the votes. Courtney says, yeah, that's what she gets. Lashana sees Cody and tells Cody that she knows he voted for her and he needs to realize that he is just as capable as Alejandro. Cody doesn't respond. Lindsay asks if her last friend is really gonna leave and Lashana says, nah, now Lindsay can win the game without worrying about beating her in the finale. Go win this thing. Alejandro says that for what it's worth, he respects her for getting this far without being a fighter. Lashana says she doesn't need his respect. She knows that she was a huge pain, even for the black belts on this island, but thanks. Courtney tells her to just leave already, and Lashana tells her that she can't believe she'd keep Alejandro in just because she hurt her feelings, but she's glad to know that she hit the right nerve. I'm coming, Harold. Courtney in confessional says that Lashana can play like she won, but she survived despite the odds. She's in the final four, nothing will stop her now. Episode 24 is an aftermath that is not very important in of itself, but an event outside of the games is taking place. Duncan is training with Kosho falling onto his back as Duncan kicks him over. Duncan tells Kosho that he really needs to step up his game. Sierra suddenly enters and Duncan asks why she's here. Sierra asks if he knows how Courtney is doing and Duncan asks if she's still in. He stopped watching a little after Tyler left. Sierra says yes, she's in the final four and she's in this for you. She wants to win the million to apologize to you. Duncan says apologize to me for what? Sierra says wait, you're not mad that she doesn't spend time with you? Duncan says please, does she really think that's why he quit this season? He doesn't hate Courtney. He hated being on a team that only argued and the no fighting rule really pissed him off. Sierra says that he has to tell her then, because Courtney is blaming herself for your elimination. Duncan says it seems like it's working out, she's trying to win the million for me after all, and she made it to the final four without it. Duncan gets ready to fight Kosho once again, but Sierra says that Courtney was there for his finale. Duncan asks why she had to bring that up, and Sierra says that's what this is really about, isn't it? You can't let go of that loss to Harold, can you? Duncan says he was so close, and he messed up when it mattered the most. Sierra says that's not true, but Duncan says to make it worse, he arm wrestled Cody and lost. He's so pathetic. Sierra asks how long he's gonna keep hiding then, because Courtney has a 50-50 chance to be in that finale, and if she loses and you're not there, do you know what that will do to her? At least she was there to comfort you after your loss. Duncan sighs and says that she's right, but what if he has to watch her lose? Sierra says then you two will have that in common. Don't let the loss to Harold define your legacy. Duncan asks why she even came here at all, and Sierra says that Dunkany is her favorite ship. I mean, it's the ship that survived ever since season 1 of Island after all, and it gave her hope that her and Cody would survive. It would be tragic for it to die now. Duncan sighs and says fine, he'll go back. Sorry, Kosho, I promised you full commitment this time. Kosho says it's no problem, say hi to Kureha for him. As he watches the two leave, Kosho says that Duncan is yours, Kureha. Treat him well. Episode 25 begins with Chris telling the final four that they've all had an incredible season. Lindsay in confessional says that Lasami may have been eliminated, but she's still here and she's so close to the end. Tyler better be watching because she's gonna win. Alejandro in confessional says that it's finally time to secure his victory. Courtney in confessional says okay, just 2 more challenges until the finale presumably. She can do this. Duncan better be watching back home. Oh, please don't be with Gwen right now. Cody in confessional says he doesn't know why he thinks he can get revenge for Sierra. He holds no power here. He's no schemer like Alejandro, nor has the spirit that Courtney does. He may as well just quit. Chris tells them that this challenge is special. There will be no vote in this one. The contestant that arrives last to Hawaii will be eliminated. Good luck. Cody says, oh, what's the point? Getting from Drumheller to Hawaii is impossible for him. Alejandro facepalms and goes to Cody, asking what he thinks he's doing, farming sympathy. Cody asks what he means, and Alejandro says to stop. He knows what he's doing. How did you survive being this pathetic? Cody says because Sierra protected him, and Alejandro groans as he says that's not true. Cody asks how he can say that, and Alejandro Alejandro says to listen, he's staying with him, so their survival is in his hands. Cody says that he was thinking of making a hot air balloon, but it's probably no use. Alejandro says interesting. Sure, they can do that. Cody says really? And Alejandro says sure. He'd probably beat Cody in a foot race anyway. Courtney boards a train along with Lindsay, and Courtney tells her to stop copying her. Lindsay says not to worry, their paths will split soon enough when she wins, and Courtney leaves. Courtney in confessional asks if she just lost a battle of wits to Lindsay. Cody continues building and says Alejandro's gonna love this button. Alejandro asks what it does, and Cody says just to wait, it'll be perfect if he sees the other two. Alejandro says he's starting to like him, he can't wait to see what it does. Courtney watches Lindsay just reading, being annoyed and walking to a different boxcar before seeing a toolbox with a wrench, and she uses it to disconnect the boxcars, waving goodbye to Lindsay as Lindsay wonders where Courtney is going. Courtney's boxcar being left behind as Courtney face bombs. Courtney in confessional says if she didn't know any better, she thinks the universe is trying to tell her to be thankful for what she has. Nah, there's always something more to gain. Alejandro tells Cody that he can't believe this worked, and Cody says he didn't either, honestly. He thought they'd have fallen by now. Alejandro says speaking of falling, but Cody says to listen, he really appreciates what Alejandro has done for him. Alejandro's taken aback by this and says, oh, you're welcome? Cody says yeah, but it's up to him to enact the revenge for everyone else. He likes him, but he knows that Alejandro's a snake. Goodbye, Alejandro. Alejandro tries to grab onto Cody, but Cody hits the button, and Alejandro's seat detaches and the hot air balloon surges upwards, so Alejandro just can't grab him, and Alejandro falls to the ground below. Alejandro in confessional says that little pendejo tricked me. He was going to get the jump on him first, and then he halted him with those kind words. He didn't think he had that in him. He stops and says he's impressed. Lindsay gets to the beach where Chris tells her to drive this boat to the other side to win immunity and a guaranteed spot in the finale. Cody is next and he gets into one before punching a hole in one of the boats that won't be noticeable now, but will be once they start driving it. Lindsay says she's happy to see him. She didn't expect him to make it, and Cody says neither did I. Cody begins passing her and Lindsay scratches her head before pushing the lever up, and the boat begins to practically fly across the water, and she makes it to shore first, with Cody making it second. Cody tells Lindsay that was nice. She's surprised Courtney isn't with her though. Lindsay says her too. She doesn't know where she went. Cody says that maybe she got tired and went home, huh? Courtney gets onto a horse before Alejandro yells out to her, jumping onto a horse as well, as the two race to the final two boats and both get into one, riding to the end as Cody waits with bated breath to see which one is the one with the hole in it. Alejandro is about to make it before suddenly he notices the water and the boat begins to sink. Courtney sailing to the end to make it in third. Alejandro swims to the shore before saying that was unfair, his was broken. Chris says that he doesn't remember any being broken. Cody says that it was him. Alejandro says, wait, you don't mean to tell me that you not only sabotaged me during the journey, but also during the finale of the challenge? Cody says unintentionally on the second one, but yeah. Alejandro says that's cutthroat, he wasn't sure he had it in him. Regardless, he earned his respect. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't deserve to win. You beat the unbeatable Alejandro Burro Muerto. Alejandro begins to walk off before Courtney asks where he's going. The finale is here. It makes no sense for Chris to send him home. Alejandro says he was trying to be cool but realized that as well and was just hoping they would have left by now. Chris says regardless, you three have made it. Unfortunately, Alejandro, your road ends here. Alejandro says he got rid of all the true fighters. He's satisfied. Cody says he's here and Alejandro says yeah, true fighters. You to your own admission so you aren't one so he doesn't feel bad. Courtney tells him to stop coping and Alejandro says he is filled with rage, but this humbleness is the only thing keeping him from snapping. Chris says regardless, time for you to leave because the finale is about to start. Alejandro says he's rooting for Cody, leaving to go to join the peanut gallery. The finale is here. Cody in confessional says that he's finally here, just one more challenge to win and he has avenged Sierra. Lindsay in confessional says that she never thought that she'd make it here and now she's in the finale. Don't worry, Tyler and Lasana, she's bringing this one home. Chris tells them that as the winner of last challenge, Lindsay has an express pass to the finale, but Cody and Courtney, you two still need to earn your placement. You two will have one more challenge that will determine the contestant who will face Lindsay in the finale. Cody looks into the peanut gallery and asks where Sierra is, and Chris says that she left around episode 24 apparently. Courtney in confessional says not only is Sierra gone, but so is Duncan. Don't tell me that Cody obsessed freak is now obsessed with Duncan. Courtney asks why she has so many less supporters, and Heather tells her that it's almost like people don't like villains. Courtney says she's not a villain, she was just trying to win. This does not go over well with everyone just glaring at her, and Courtney says okay, maybe she did do some bad things to get here. Chris tells Lindsay that she can pick the challenge for Courtney and Cody to go through, or she can let Cody and Courtney choose. Lindsay says she wants to do it as a reward. Chris says they'll see whether she thinks it's a reward soon enough. Lindsay is put into a rectangular glass box and golf balls begin falling. Bridget says that she thought she filled it with ping pong balls, and Chris says he knows, and he isn't mad, just disappointed. He decided to spruce it up with golf balls. Lindsay leaves while choking and hacks up a golf ball. Jeff says that Lindsay has chosen the traditional Hawaiian fire dance of death. Both Courtney and Cody look worried. Lindsay is tied up in the middle, separated by Cody and Courtney at the ends, each holding jousting sticks to fight each other. Their job is to knock the other person off the platform and untie Lindsay to win. Both collide and Cody is able to take every smack and begins to push Courtney to the edge. He tells Courtney that it's time to end this. Right as he's about to deliver it, he hears someone shout his name and he turns to see Sierra and Duncan running to them, as Cody and Courtney both are happy to see their lovers back. Courtney bounces back quicker as Cody yells to Sierra that he missed her. Sierra tells Cody to look out, and when he turns he tries to block the strike, but Courtney hits the wood Cody's standing on and it breaks, sending Cody down into the water as Courtney says, "Yes, you see that, Duncan?" She quickly unties Lindsay as Chris says that Courtney and Lindsay are their finalists. Sierra rushes into the water and saves Cody. Cody telling Sierra he's sorry, he got so far just to fall short when it mattered the most. Sierra says not to worry about it, he did incredible. Tyler yells, "Yeah, nice job, man, you took out Alejandro." Alejandro sighs and says he has to admit he isn't the same scrawny nerd that he used to know in his eyes. Lashana says, "Yeah, just let Lindsay bring this home for us." Cody asks Sierra if it's really okay that he lost, and Sierra tells him that she's just happy he's okay. These games have a tendency not to let that happen. Cody says, "Yeah, he didn't do too bad for a guy with only a year of formal training, and he got the girl anyway without the big prize." Sierra says she'd love him even if he was living in a dumpster. Chris says that with that out of the way, time for the final challenge. The two will build sacrificial dummies that resemble their opponent before throwing it into the volcano. It was originally going to be a jury vote, but he doesn't think there's really a competition here. The dummies will be built with wood and pineapples and must be made by the people they choose to help them. Lindsay, you choose first. Lindsay says she'll take Tyler, and Eva says that if she may, she wishes to represent her team. Courtney says that's no fair, but at least Tyler balances it out a bit. She picks Duncan, of course, and then Alejandro. Alejandro says great choice, they'll win this, only because of me, of course. Duncan says not to underestimate him, he's been training ever since he lost. Courtney in confessional says so he wasn't with Gwen, thank goodness. As the two teams work on their dummies, Eva and Alejandro trade passing glances at each other and know better than anyone that they're the only threat to the other's victory. They walk away from building. Alejandro tells Eva that she must really think she's something special. Eva says that she heard the tales of Yujiro. She wants to see what he can do for herself. Baki tells the fighters to make sure to absorb everything from this match. This was a long time coming. Tyler gets going first. Courtney asking if they can talk, and Duncan says, "Really? Now?" Courtney says, "Yeah, she just wants to say that she's sorry." Duncan asks what she's sorry for, and Courtney says because she didn't appreciate the time she had with him. She promises that she'll support whatever he does from now on. Duncan says that's nice for a change, but he has to be honest, he didn't leave because of her. He left because the no fighting rule pissed him off and the arguing just made him angry. Courtney says, "Really? It was that simple?" And Duncan says, "Yeah, there's no bad blood, so how about we go win this thing?" Eva takes her stance and Alejandro jumps into the air, aiming to use the same kicking technique that beat Eva in episode 14, trying to bait Eva into grabbing one of his legs so he could attack with the other, but Eva just grabs both of his legs and slams him onto the ground before telling him that if he doesn't take this seriously, it won't even be a challenge for her. Alejandro says he's happy that she can push him this far as well, but he will only allow himself to lose to Baki. He takes his stance and throws a strike that Eva dodges, knowing just how deadly these strikes are. They could tear him apart. She aims for a counter, but Alejandro's speed cuts up Eva's arm, and Eva goes to pure defense, dodging the attacks as well as she can before jumping into the air and trying to kick Alejandro. Alejandro trying to swipe at Eva's leg before Eva yanks her leg back and kicks Alejandro with the other, sending him to the ground. Eva rushes in and slams her fist into the ground, Alejandro dodging out of the way, and Eva is left breaking a hole into the earth, and Alejandro tries to surge forward and capitalize, but Eva just slams her other fist into his chest, and Alejandro's slice still hits, but doesn't hit nearly as deep, as Eva capitalizes with another punch, but Alejandro ducks under it and swings his arm upwards, Eva having been clearly cut as she reels back. Alejandro rushes in to finish the job as Eva begins to think about what she can do. Eva in confessional says this guy's insane. She thought that he was just a copycat and that this was just an odd style that caught Baki off guard, but this is the real deal. She lets out a breath and takes a stance once again, Alejandro rushing in to finish it off. Alejandro in confessional says that Eva was bluffing. There's no way that anyone could stay standing after such a deep cut. Eva in confessional says that her body was in severe pain, but the only thing she could think about was Dopo and Baki and how disappointed they'd be if she lost. Alejandro swings his arms to try and cut Eva, but Eva is parrying the blows, using all of her energy to remain standing. Eva in confessional says that she was trying to regain her energy, but she could tell she was just losing more blood and she was gonna pass out soon enough. Alejandro tries to finish it with a final strike after seeing Eva stumble. Eva in confessional says she couldn't dodge and she couldn't fight back, so she stopped trying to. If he wanted the cut so badly, she'd give it to him and take his hands in exchange. Eva grabs his hands as his fingers slice into Eva, and Alejandro tries to push them in deeper, Alejandro telling her it was a good try, but he's won. Eva tells him it's not over yet, slamming her forehead against Alejandro's as Alejandro tries to gather his thoughts, only for another headbutt and then another to hit him. Eva slamming her forehead into Alejandro over and over again, and Alejandro's hands slowly drop to his side, and Alejandro stares at the sky, his body not moving. Eva tells him it was a good fight. She tries to take a few steps away, and in confessional says that her only thought was to help Lindsay, but soon she mutters sorry to Lindsay and falls down as well. The peanut gallery erupts into cheers over Alejandro's win, with Katie and Seedy in confessional saying that Eva inspired them so much that they'll become tag team wrestlers. Katie says yeah, and Izzy will definitely train us. Izzy in confessional says yeah, I'm not doing that. I have my own career I'm working on, and those two are kind of annoying. She's gonna hang out with Owen and Jack instead. Now that sounds like a real good time. Tyler tells Lindsay he's so proud of her, he loves her so much. Lindsay says she loves him too. Tyler stops and hands the dummy to Lindsay, telling her to go. Lindsay says that she can't drag this up, and Tyler says he knows, that's why he's gonna stay behind and buy her time. This ledge is narrow, he will be the wall that keeps Courtney and Duncan away from her. Lindsay says okay, she'll win this and come back. Lindsay leaves, and in confessional Tyler says he was terrified. Facing Duncan isn't a guaranteed win, and that cord cut hurts bad. Duncan and Courtney make it, and Courtney says to get out of the way. Tyler says no, he will protect Lindsay. Duncan says oh yeah, well let's see you prove it. He kicks Tyler in the balls, and Tyler grimaces but remains standing, and in return, Tyler punches Duncan, sending him to the ground. Duncan stands up and says that he tried to let Tyler go down nicely. Tyler says that what he calls mercy would just be humiliation for him. Tyler then tries to punch him again before Duncan slips under it and cord cuts both of Tyler's legs, Tyler falling onto his knees as he says, "Aw man, that hurts." Duncan says, "Sorry man, he tried to warn him." Courtney goes past, and as Duncan tries to go, Tyler grips his calf with his hands and Vice grips his leg. Courtney yelling out for Duncan, and Duncan tells her to go. Courtney decides to leave as Duncan says, "Oh my god, it hurts. Why'd you do that?" Tyler says because this isn't their fight, it's their girls' finale. Let them prove they deserve to win. Duncan says, "Damn, and he really wanted to be there for her too." Tyler extends his hand and Duncan takes it, the two helping each other up the mountain. Lindsay groans as she holds the dummy to the ledge, it being pretty heavy for her. But Courtney arrives as Lindsay attempts to throw the dummy in before Courtney yanks her back, grabbing her own dummy to throw it in before Lindsay stands up and grabs Courtney's dummy. Courtney tells her to let go, the two fighting before Courtney yanks it back and throws it into the volcano, cheering at her victory before Lindsay throws her dummy in after. Courtney asks what she's doing. She already won. Throwing her own dummy in after is pointless. Lindsay says really, because from her perspective, she thinks she missed a piece. Courtney asks what she means before looking at Lindsay, who's holding the leg of her dummy that got ripped off when the two fought and she didn't realize. Chris says that Lindsay is the winner. Courtney falls to her knees and begins crying as Duncan and Tyler reach the top. Lindsay runs to Tyler and hugs him, the two tumbling back down the volcano, and Tyler says he's so happy to be with her. Even if she would have lost, he wouldn't change this. Lindsay tells him that it's finally over, they can finally go back to their semi-normal lives. Lashana says, "Hell no, you're dating a martial artist. Nothing is gonna be normal for you." Cody says, "What, you ain't gonna cheer Harold on?" Lashana says that she loves Harold, but she's gonna let this relationship be long distance until he decides to relax a bit. Heather walks to Alejandro and tells him that it looks like it didn't work out for him. Alejandro just continues staring up at the sky, and Heather tells him to call her when he gets fixed up by Correja. Duncan tells Courtney she did great, and Courtney says she was so close but failed. Duncan grabs the piece that Lindsay let go of, and he hands it to her, telling her to finish it. Courtney throws it in, and Duncan tells her that she's the winner to him. Courtney says that's not true, she lost, but thanks Duncan. Courtney kisses Duncan, and Gwen smiles and says good for them. DJ asks if she's angry, and Gwen says nah, can't be mad at losing something that was never hers to begin with. Eva whispers to Alejandro it was the most fun she's had fighting, and Alejandro doesn't respond, not knowing how he feels but not feeling like he's a failure for losing to her. Baki carries Eva to Correja, and Correja says that he didn't really believe Eva could beat Alejandro. He was expecting an overwhelming Courtney win. Baki says martial arts is full of surprises. Chris says that this season was even bigger than actions. Some contestants grew, some looked like fools, and I got paid. See you next season, and this has been Total Drama World Tour. Real talk, thank you for anyone who's reached this far into the video. Special thanks to anyone who has been here to watch all 3 seasons, and until next time, have the day you deserve.